Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and we are live at somethingtowrestle.com just a couple hours before Monday Night Raw kicks off live on Netflix. And we couldn't do this without a Hall of Famer, the wrestling god. JBL is here. What's up, Mr. Layfield? How's it going, man?
Yeah, I hate leprechauns. I hate their whole families. I hate their ancestors. I hate everything about leprechauns.
Well, I knew that about you, as a matter of fact. And I know you've been in training.
I have been.
You want to show everybody your tackling dummy? Do you have that?
Yep, I got my little leprechaun, stupid little doll here. You can punch and you can beat down like see, I beat it down. You blow it up and beat it down like that, like little. Yeah. And
as I understand, you've actually been to have this right. You've been training by throwing trash cans at that doll.
It's a leprechaun dummy is what it actually is. And yes, I have been training like a suplex dummy. I got a suplex dummy that Mr. Briscoe set me up with too. He named it Bruce.
I love that.
He did. He named it Bruce. I got it in my garage, and then I got this little leprechaun here, and so I got a trash can also out there, and I've been taking target practice at the little bastard.
But now over the weekend, I mean, I don't know this for sure, but I've been led to believe that over the weekend, well, some things happened. You had a spoken word event, and you were on stage telling stories and drinking beers and all that. Sort of set the stage for what happened this weekend.
I had a spoken word tour, I guess it is, in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Had a wonderful time there, and a little leprechaun that happens to be one of the guys we talked about last week. His son was there, Finley's son, the little leprechaun bastard. And at the end of the event, we'd had a few drinks, and I found a trash can, and I hit, and so I thought I'm going to hit this little bastard with this trash can, because that's what you do with leprechauns. See, leprechauns, it's like varmints in West Texas. You can shoot them at any time. You don't need open season. You don't need a hunting permit. I don't need a leprechaun permit to hit a leprechaun. So I had grabbed that trash can and I knocked that little bastard down. That's what I did.
Well, listen, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to see it. They say seeing is believing, and I think we may have a clip.
How great is that, just to hit a little leprechaun? It's like the greatest thing ever. It's the greatest thing I've ever been able to do. And I've been doing it for 20 plus years.
And that's the thing you're most proud of, that right there?
In my life. Yeah, absolutely. In my life. Yeah. Yeah. In my life. Everything that I've done and been to, hitting leprechauns for 20 years is probably the most proud thing I am. I think St. Patrick should have kept the snakes and got rid of the Irish.
Okay. Now, my understanding is your weekend didn't end there, because I actually did one of these a few years ago with Dylan. You go to the Great Theater there in Oshkosh, and then there's actually a wrestling show the next day, right? And that
yes, there was, and there was about 1,300 people there. You had Demolition there. Benjamin Shelton was there, as he is called by certain people, not by me because he's my friend. And I love Sheldon. Santino was there. Kelly was there. I mean, just an absolute loaded event. It was a lot of fun to be at.
I don't know if you know this, but Silva has actually gotten footage from that show, and I know that you.
We probably should go straight to the Q&A is what we should do. I mean, we promised people a Q&A, so we probably should go straight to the Q&A, I would think. I mean, I don't know what the footage is, but it's probably not that interesting.
Well, we are doing Ask JBL Anything, and we will get there, but I feel like we've only seen one end of the bookend. We know there's another out there, so I'll admit I haven't seen this, but I have in my notes here that we actually have footage from what happened inside the squared circle in Wisconsin this past weekend. Let's take a look. Okay, so there's John in the ring.
Yeah, you can cut it off right there. That's all we need to see. You don't need to see the leprechaun get hit.
You've got the trash can over your head. There's Hornswoggle. Oh, he punched you right in the nads. Oh, I didn't feel good. Oh my God. Did Swoggle's son just knock you out with a garbage can?
Technically, yeah. Technically, you might can say that by what you surmise on the video. Yes, but technically.
So a 16-year-old picked up a garbage can.
He's like an old 16. He's close.
He is
to
a big 16.
He's close to 17.
16 and 3/4.
Yep, like 16 and like 10 months. More than 3/4, like 16 and 10 months in a few days. He's only like a month and like 3 weeks away from being 17.
16 and 7/8.
Yeah.
And the son of Swoggle laid your ass out with a trash can.
That looks like what that was. Yes.
But now, are you suggesting that the footage has been doctored?
Yes, 100%. And I think Dave Silva did it. There's no doubt about it. Dave Silva's a horrible person, and he loves leprechauns. He sleeps with them.
He sleeps with them.
He does. True story. That's true. Look, up to him. I don't judge. You do whatever you want. 2025, but he sleeps with leprechauns.
All righty. Well, listen, catch John the next time he's in your town. And if you've got trash cans or little people, be wary. I'm just going to say that now. I do want to touch on.
I'm going to get the little leprechaun and his whole family back. I am. It's now become a bit of a war. It's a 20-year ongoing saga that has just accelerated a little bit. So there's going to be a receipt for that.
No, wait a minute. What does that mean?
That means that I may order even more leprechauns to train.
Okay. All right. We'll be ready. We are doing Ask JBL.
I may challenge Hornswoggle to a stepladder match. I know hand to knee combat. If I could tell the joke I told, but I'd be canceled from everything if I did.
Oh God. Well, let's throw the keys to our audience. We promised you guys Ask JBL Anything. We are live on YouTube at somethingtowrestle.com. We've been making this a habit. It's Monday afternoons at 5 Central, 6 Eastern. We want you to jump on with us and get your sort of pregame on for Monday Night Raw. Adam Rich is with us here live, and he says, what are the pros and cons of an increasing number of talent using a private tour bus? Does JBL with the bus concept was more prevalent? In previous? Okay. I don't really know what that means, but I know these days a lot of talent we're making house shows and loops and things like that on the tour bus. It does feel like in more recent years with house shows sort of disappearing that it might not be as necessary. But I know for a guy like Big Show, man, just conventional air travel and car rental travel had to suck. So I totally get the use of a tour bus. Did you ever have a bus? What was the perception of those who did have a bus? Do you think a bus is necessary now with the reduced schedule? Talk to us about bus stuff.
Buses came in right when I was getting out. And no, I never had one. And I don't think I wanted one. I mean, there were some guys that were starting to get one. I just kind of enjoyed being around the guys, and girls. I enjoyed being around the crew and I didn't mind getting a rental car and staying in a hotel. It wasn't that important. I'd been traveling my whole life, so it wasn't that big a deal. But the guys that have it, it changed things for those guys. I mean, especially guys that were on the road a lot late. I mean, that's such a great way to travel. Cena was one of the first ones to have a bus, and I mean, he was awesome with it. He'd take guys in the bus, from town to town. He was, incredibly generous, as you can imagine. Years later, he said, "Hey, I want to just tell you thank you. Come with me." And so we got on the bus. He had some catering for us. It was me, Michael Cole, and Tony Chimmel, and he had a bunch of moonshine for us. Why, guys? Like this huge Hollywood star. He's this huge wrestling star. He's got moonshine. that his bus driver had brought him, and we drank it. It was horrible, but woo, what a night! But I thought it was great that these guys had these buses. I thought it was wonderful that things became easier for them. We couldn't afford it. We started, money started coming better like in 2005, 2006, for most of the guys. Most of the guys just simply couldn't afford it. And then now they're all, not all of them, a lot of them are flying private, which is another step. That's the first level of luxury to me. That's really worth it. When you can fly private, that changes your life. I mean, it's a game changer. And for those guys that can do it, their life changes completely, and God bless them. I'm glad they're making so much money. I'm glad they're flying private. And I love the fact that, the ones that have the buses, I don't think they need them as much anymore because they're not doing as many live events.
Hey, I do want to ask you about just how and when maybe the income changed. We're not going to get into specifics. I don't want anyone to, be offended or us betray any confidences or anything like that.
Yeah.
But at the height, if you said you felt like the money started to really change in like 05 and an upward trend, like a top talent in 05, ballpark, what would they have been making, and what would have, say, a middle of the road guy have been making, without naming anyone in particular? Just what was the range and how did it change? I'm just trying to sort of see a before and after as best you know, with firsthand knowledge. Again, not saying what anybody did specifically.
And I don't have firsthand knowledge. I only have firsthand knowledge of my contract, which I won't discuss. But I only have firsthand knowledge. I only have knowledge of what I've read off the internet of what guys were making off, either they found tax returns or stuff like that from 04, 05, 06 era. You had a lot of guys making in the $1 to $2 million range. The very top guys, from what I saw online, some making around $3. So from I would say 1 to 3 was probably the range. Is from what I've seen from online. That's not from. I've never discussed my contract with anyone, and no one has ever discussed their contract with me. So I don't know, 100% other than what I've seen online. And from what I've seen now, that number is, 5x what the top guys are making.
So you believe there are guys in the game today who are making $10 and $15 million right now?
If the numbers are right, that's reported. And I don't have, Cody Rhodes has not told me what he's made. Neither has Roman or anybody. I don't know any of that. It's all what I've read online from, reports. And I assume they're right. They seem accurate as far as what the TV contracts are, as far as how much everything has progressed and what other people are making in sports. So it seems to make sense that those guys could be making that.
Was there ever any
conversation? If you go back before that, Conrad, say around 95, guys weren't making anything. The only guys making money were Brett and Taker. And then shortly after that, there still wasn't a bunch of guys making money. Guaranteed contracts didn't come in until around 98 or something like that.
And when you're saying, Taker and Brett, even then, I don't know in 95 that anybody was making $1 million. I could be wrong, but you guys were running like high school gyms occasionally on spot shows. So it's hard for there to be, if you're paid on the house, how much money can there possibly be in a high school gym? Not being ugly, just saying that was the nature of the business at the time.
100%. And we had big rosters, big cards. We'd have 8 or 9 matches, and you're running small arenas. You get a $200 draw from Arnie or from Tim, and a lot of times you would owe the company $50 when your paycheck would come due for that day. God. So you made $150, but you got a $200 draw. So you actually would owe the company money because you took a $200 draw. So business was pretty tough back then, and nobody was really making any money. That didn't come in until later. And even then, the downside contracts were not like the guaranteed contracts now. My contract, when I had my best run, I probably made, I think 9 to 10x what my downside was. Because I never cared about the downside, because I just believe that you should
outrun it. Yeah,
you should eat what you kill. And I always thought, if I do well, that Benson's going to pay me. He's a great pay guy, or was a great pay guy. I wasn't worried about it.
Did you ever hear from Vince the methodology, or did you ever understand the methodology of how they got there? Because I love that you laugh when I even bring that up, because that's always been the discussion. I've heard one guy say, well, the promoter would put all the money that they drew at the gate in a bucket, and then they'd throw it to the ceiling, and whatever stuck, they'd split amongst the boys. Silly shit like that. But did you ever hear a methodology at all about, because we've heard like the NWA champion got paid X percentage and blah, blah, blah. Did Vince ever have anything like that you know of?
Yes, of course he did. He had a full methodology, and it was 100% bullshit. 100%. 100%. He had like 29%. I remember the number. It was like went to payroll, not to payroll of like building employees and but talent. I think it's 29% went to talent. And that number may have been legit. I'm not saying that number is not legit, but how that number got dispersed was absolute bullshit. It was Vince. Vince would go through, and I talked to guys who've done payroll, including Mr. Briscoe. And Vince would come through and go, nope, change that to this, change this to this. He would base it upon what he thought guys were drawing, what he thought they were worth, what if the ticket sales that he thought they sold, and where they were on the card. And it was all feel. Now, the amount that you have may have been that 29%, because that's the number I remember. It may have changed over time, but that's the number I remember. But as far as dispersing it, that was all Vince, just feel. That was 100% feel. But to my knowledge, nobody ever bitched about. Well, there were some guys that bitched, but not many would bitch about paydays. Vince was a great pay guy, but best I ever saw.
I have heard through the grapevine that there would be talent who would complain and say they felt like they got shortchanged and they felt like they deserved more. And more often than not, that was corrected. Do you remember there being a habitual complainer or someone who maybe did it to the point where it turned Vince off? I don't have to name a name, but I'm just asking.
I do. I know. Yeah, and I won't say the names. I know specific names that guys went to Vince and said, "This is bullshit. I should have got paid more," and Vince paid them more. And I don't know if there was any animosity going forward. I was there with them afterward for a couple of years. There was no punishment that I saw that Vince thought they beat him out of money. Vince, for whatever reason, agreed with it. And everybody that I heard of that went to Vince that argued about money, Vince, they got pretty much what they wanted, or they got more money. Vince was really good about that. If you had a reason to say that you were deserving of more money, then Vince would agree with it, and he'd pay you. Vince was a great pay guy. You know, we go around the country and we'd pay. We had old wrestlers that came around all the time, and Gerald Briscoe was the one that took care of them. I mean, guys that hadn't worked in 20 years, and Vince would say, "Be sure and give that guy $1,500, give that guy $2,000 or whatever else." You know, and sometimes Jerry would get money. He goes, "No, give him more than that." And Vince would tell him, you know, Vince paid a ton of guys, extra guys like that. You know, old wrestlers that were just kind of down on their luck, which nobody knows about that stuff.
I've heard the same thing too, that Vince had a lot of charitable stuff that he didn't want anybody to know about that he took care of. But I do want to ask, you know, because you said, "Hey, I didn't know what anybody else was getting paid. I never disclosed what I was getting paid, yada, yada, yada." I appreciate that. It's very old school. But I have to assume that when you were trying to break into the WWF or when you were first getting there, everyone had in their mind's eye, man, when this company was on top, and respectfully, it wasn't when you first joined in 95.
Oh, terrible.
When this company was on top, you know, within the last 10 years prior, Hulk Hogan was the man. Mm-hmm. And you just know that Hulk Hogan probably made the most money. Now, obviously, you never were his accountant and you didn't do his taxes or anything like that. But I find it hard to believe that the boys weren't doing a whispered campaign saying, "Man, when Hogan was here on top, he made blank." Did you ever hear a number like that, whether it's fictitious or not? That conversation had to happen, right?
It's a great question. And no, I never heard it. I never heard somebody say about how much Hogan made. You know, I heard them say about how much, you know, maybe like certain house shows, Hogan made this for a house show or something, or they made this because they were on Hogan's show, right, as compared to another, because when they ran 3 shows, you wanted to be on Hogan's show.
Right.
You know, just like back in the territory days, you know, with any hot person, you know, you want to be on Dusty or the Rock and Roll Boys, either one, shows down in the Carolinas. And, you know, guys really wanted to be on the Hogan show because they're making so much money. And guys would tell sometimes the difference between money between, say, the C show, the B show, and Hogan show.
We've heard, you know, Jim Ross say, you know, he took a lot of pride in handing Steve Austin $1 million check for 1 quarter's t-shirt sales. It was in excess of $1 million. So we know that the merch opportunity just went crazy. And we've all heard like the Iron Sheik story of when the LJN action figure first launched, that he got this big royalty check for like 80 grand for a quarter or something, just for the figure. As a reminder, the Hulk Hogan figure had to beat up somebody. So why not the mean, nasty, dirty foreign heel or whatever they positioned him as? But I wonder, you know, in that prime era of either the golden era or the attitude era, it just feels natural that everyone on the roster would have some sort of a goal of, "Hey man, I hear so-and-so's making that much money and that's my new goal." Did wrestling never really work like that? And I'm just way off base, because in sales, that is what people would talk about. "Oh, here's the record. This guy on this month and this quarter, this year, man, he blew it out and he sold more than anybody and he did this." And that motivates the rest of the sales guys to say, "Yeah, that's my new goal. I want to beat that. And I'm going to do more than you," and blah, blah, blah. I know there is some competitive juices within wrestling, but I just find it hard to believe that nobody ever even freestyled what they thought someone would be making.
I think it was more they wanted their spot.
Yeah.
You know, then they were speculating necessarily on what they were making, you know, because people knew what they were making and people kept that pretty confidential. Guys just didn't tell each other what they were making. You know,
sure.
And, you know, you may have told your tag team partner.
Right.
I don't think me and Ron ever discussed what we were making. We just assumed we were making the same. You know, if Ron had asked, I'd gladly tell him. But we never did. I think guys wanted certain guys' spots. You know, they knew that, to say The Rock or Steve was selling, I mean, incredible amounts of that stuff. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was the first time merch was, selling like crazy.
Yeah.
Guys wanted to have that spot, for about 3 months. Me and Ron, I can't remember what we made. I would tell you if I did. Me and Ron had the number one selling shirt for a while was "Don't take this ass whooping personal." Got that from the Harlem Knights, that heavyweight boxer that stuttered.
Oh,
I couldn't believe that phrase wasn't trademarked. They put it out there and it became the number one shirt for a short time. And, it was great money, but we wanted to be that. Everybody wanted to be that number one seller, but I don't think it was necessarily. And it may have been, I want to take his spot.
right.
It was more like, I want that spot, and I don't care who occupied it. I just want that spot for myself.
No, I totally get that. I'm just fascinated by learning about, how the business changed and how it was motivated, because we've always heard, like, for instance, and I know you weren't there, but the legend is out there that the former, I think his name is Kevin Woles, the real life name of Nails, the WWF character. Supposedly, when he had his dust up with Vince, it's about his frustration from a pay-per-view payoff that he had with Bossman. Maybe Bossman got a bigger payday than he did, and that led to those physicality problems that ultimately led to Nails being dismissed and all that. Do you think that is one of the examples and one of the reasons why people thought it was maybe taboo to even discuss it in wrestling? Because when it had happened, it ended poorly sometimes?
I think so, yeah. Now we discussed a lot, what was Stan and Doc making and Brody making in Japan.
Right.
It just seemed different to discuss that. I don't know why it felt different, but we discussed, like, these guys are making this X amount in Japan because that's what you can get. But as far as, and you might discuss what you made, somebody made it in a territory just for a few days. So I went to Atlanta, I went to down south, I went to Memphis, and this is what I made. It was great. But a lot of guys keep it to themselves because they don't want anybody to know. Especially if they got paid well, they don't want anybody to know how much they're making, because then all of a sudden it becomes a problem. Now, if you're not making anything, you're bitching about it, that's different. But also, it was embarrassing if you didn't get paid a lot, because you're saying basically I wasn't worth it. So there's a lot of reasons not to repeat what you were making.
No, I totally get it. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. But I do remember what you're saying. Like, I remember watching shoot interviews in the 90s, and you would hear so many guys say, oh, so-and-so was making 10 grand a week in Japan, or so-and-so was making 15 grand a week in Japan. And that's just not what they're saying these days. And I know the business is totally different now, because now you're not really paid on the house. You're paid a guaranteed contract.
Right.
And I think that's great for the families and the performers inside the business. But I do wonder, has it changed the dynamic of wrestling to no longer be paid on the house, John?
100%. I believe that's why there's so many flips and flops, because people aren't worried about getting hurt, because there's guaranteed contracts. I mean,
so the high spots are less risky, because even if you miss time, you're getting paid.
Yeah, you're getting paid.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going out there. We're thinking, if I try to tell guys sometimes, they're doing some crazy some spot show somewhere. You're not under contract. You might think about doing that. You get hurt, you're not working. You got to pay your own medical bills.
Yeah,
that's a real problem. When you're not under contract somewhere. But now these guys are under contract, so I think that's what's changed a lot of how much risk guys are willing to take. Because now, if you get hurt, you're paid. If we got hurt, I remember I got hurt, tore my bicep, I think it was, or something like that. And JR called me and said, hey, you've reached your minimum already. Because I was taking, my minimum was pretty low, because I, always, was never worried about that. And I said, yeah, I know it. So I'm thinking I'm not going to get paid. He goes, Vince and I both have decided to just keep paying you. It's a really cool thing. They paid me. They didn't have to, and they paid me. I don't know if they did that with everybody or not, because I didn't talk about that with everybody else, but they took really good care of me, but they didn't have to. So that's a scary thing when you're sitting there getting paid and you got a mortgage payment, you got a car payment, you got all these things going on, and then all of a sudden you get hurt and you've reached your minimum if you're under a minimum contract, or you're not under contract and now you don't get paid. You got no way to pay your bills. And all of a sudden, and your bills are pretty high if you're sitting there at a pretty high spot on some territory somewhere.
Well, let's make sure that nobody steals your spot with our friends at Stopbox. We are big believers in Stopbox here on the program. I mean, let's be real. Owning a handgun for self-defense comes with serious responsibility. You need it secure, but you also need it accessible when it matters most. And too often that means choosing between locking it away or leaving it out, which means it's vulnerable to kids, guests, or intruders. And that's the problem that Stopbox USA set out to solve. And I think they nailed it with the Stopbox Pro. It's 100% mechanical, keyless, battery-free lockbox that gives you instant controlled access to your firearm. No electronics, keys, or codes required. Again, it's just a patented 5-button locking system that responds only to your unique input. It's fast, intuitive, and built for muscle memory. So you're not thinking, you're reacting. And when seconds matter, that makes all the difference. With Stopbox Pro, you don't have to trade safety for speed or peace of mind for readiness. Your firearm stays secure, but always within reach. And our listeners are getting 10% off your entire order when you use the code STW. They're also hooking you up, man. Check this out. All the Stopbox products are made here in the USA in their own facility. Not only does that ensure the highest quality craftsmanship, but it also creates meaningful jobs and opportunities for the American worker. And the Stopbox Pro is TSA compliant. So one more time, for a limited time only, our listeners are getting this crazy deal. We're talking 10% off your entire order when you use the code STW. And right now, Stopbox is also running a deal on their most popular bundle. It's called the 2-pack, which saves you over 30%, and it comes with free accessories and shipping. That's 10% off and a big bundle discount when you use the code STW at StopboxUSA.com. Discover a better way to balance security and readiness with Stopbox. John, we got another question here from Instagram, a wrestling historian. He's always bringing the good questions, and he wants to know, what's your favorite prank that you pulled? So not necessarily a rib that you saw someone else do, but one that you did to someone else. What's your best rib?
Wow. A couple. The Big Show Shrek music was pretty good, and I had a partner with that. So which I think I've told before, but I don't want to stooge him. So, but that was pretty good. I thought he was going to kill me, and Kurt Angle thought he was going to kill him too. When he came out in Germany, and halfway out, they started playing Shrek's theme music during the middle of his entrance, and oh my God, he turned red, completely red, and just started sprinting the ring. Kurt Angle looks at me, he goes, "What is that?" I said, "Shrek's theme music." Kurt Angle, the gold medalist, says, "He's going to kill us." I said, "Don't worry about it, Kurt. I'll take all the heat." As soon as Big Show gets in the ring, I said, "I swear to God, Kurt Angle did it. I had nothing to do with it. I jump out of the ring." Oh my God. Big Show, if he could have called us, he eventually got me. And I said, "Go ahead and potato me, you big giant." He hit me so hard in the chest, I thought he broke my ankles. I've never been hit like that in my life. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. He hit me so freaking hard. I like, oh, Big Show. Oh, I just crawled down and whimpered. It was, yeah.
Are he and Mark Henry the two strongest guys you were ever in the ring with? Like, you could just feel the strength. And I mean, you're a big, tall, strong guy, but I'm sure part of you had to be like, oh, there's a different level here.
100% different level. Both those two guys, they're both very, very, very safe. Both of them. Brock was like that too. Brock was just, God, different level. He told me one time, we're out in West Texas, and he just got in the company. We're working the house show loop, me and him, singles matches. And he goes, "I'm going to give you a belly to belly." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "Brock," I said, I know you're strong enough, but I'm 6'6". I've been throwing on my head a couple of times. You sure you're good throwing me straight over? And he goes, "John, I've been suplexing guys since I was 5 years old." I said, "Okay." So go out there. He grabs me and threw me like I was a child. And I got up. I go, "Do that again." And he grabbed it, and he threw me again. And I got up and said, "Do it again." And he grabbed me, same thing, just 3 times. Just launched me. And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me. This guy's a freak." Yeah, Brock was unbelievable. And, a couple guys you lock up with, you could tell something's different about them. I always said that about Hodge, which I never got to lock up with Hodge. He got me one time when in Oklahoma, but that was because of a rib I pulled on Gerald Briscoe. But Shamrock and Angle were like that. When you locked up with those guys, you knew you were grabbing something. It was a different lockup when you had those guys. And when they maneuver around, they just had those really strong hands. You could just tell were different from everybody else. It was just, you could tell there was something there.
We got another question here from Trigga Cheese, who wants to know, who's one wrestler who can outdrink everyone? Who's the most prolific drinker in the history of wrestling that you've gone bellied up to the bar with?
Well, I've never been with Andre drinking, so I don't have an Andre story, but a couple guys. Barry Windham that did not get drunk. that man, he's superhuman. Takers like that, Godfather. That man can smiz or drink anything and function. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, those three guys were different level. Barry Windham could just drink all and not go piss. And not go piss. He'd sit there and just drink all day, beer, shots, whatever you wanted. Barry would just, I mean, it was ungodly how much he would drink. Not go piss or nothing, just sit there and talk to you. Cool hand Luke. I mean, Barry's a good dude. He's just one of the he's a legend for a reason.
AOTV Productions is a big Vince Russo listener, and Russo has a podcast now with Jonathan Coachman, a guy you used to work with quite a bit. And he says Coachman claims that Vince has refused to speak to Triple H and Stephanie for getting him kicked out of WWE. What do you think? Obviously, we'd be talking about someone's personal life. I don't know how much of that we want to do here on the program, but I really do hope that this report that Vince is estranged from his daughter is not true. I hope they can put that back together if it is true. Like, there's more to life than wrestling or business. And man, at the end of the day, family is what it's all about. I hope this isn't true, John, don't you?
100%. Yeah, I hope it's not true because I know how much Vince cared for both, very much so, for Hunter and for Stephanie. So I have no knowledge of it whatsoever. I saw it's been a while since I've seen Vince. Last time I saw him was when he was with the company before he got kind of ousted. And I found him in the bottom of the building. He had a room down there. It wasn't marked. I went there and spoke with him a little bit. And I told him, I said, I'm glad you didn't go quietly in the night. And he said, you knew I wouldn't do that. I said, yes, I did. I'd love to see him or speak with him. I hope none of that's true. I mean, you know what? I'm interested in what he's doing because that man doesn't go quietly into the night.
So what is the nature of your relationship with Vince? When is the last time you talked to Vince?
It's been within a year, but it hasn't. It was
not regular communication.
No, not regular communication. No. And we never really did. We never really were texting guys or we never were phone call guys. He'd call me if he needed something, and I'd call him if I needed something. He was always answer the phone, and of course, I always answered for him. He's my boss, but he's more. He was much more than that to me. I always felt like like a lot of guys did. I mean, everybody felt. So many people talk about Vince as they felt like almost as an adopted father or older brother. I was the same, and I'm not special in that regard. A lot of guys felt the same way about him.
We got to do another one here from AOTV Productions. Another interesting question. He says Jim Cornette believes Cena will retire as a heel because he doesn't see a way back for him as a face after eviscerating the fans. What do you think? Yeah, what do you think? Is there a chance that John Cena retires a heel? I don't see it.
No, and I love Corny, but I disagree with that. I think it's one of these things where they want him to come back to be Cena so badly that when it's all said and done, if he just comes out the next night as a babyface, the place will go nuts. They're going to thank him. They're going to thank him for everything. Look at this scenario. If he stays a heel, let's say, and his last match is on a Sunday, he comes out on Monday Night Raw the next night, and you know that's the last time you're going to see him. And he comes out, that place is going to go crazy cheering for him because they're going to be so thankful for what he's done. The reception that he's gotten over the years, and I've been fortunate to see almost his entire career, either from working with him and doing commentary for him, a bunch of his major part of his career. It's amazing how the fans have changed. At first they kind of resented him. At first they kind of, half liked him, half didn't like him. Then after a while, it just got where everybody loved the guy. It's an appreciation, I believe, of years of service is what it is. Very similar to, say, Dom at WrestleMania. I thought that was just an appreciation of, man, this guy's done a good job.
Christopher, we are indeed live. I know you're questioning as to whether or not this is live. It's 5:38 Central Time here on May 19th. We are totally live. Michael Carter, appreciate you donating to the cause. Thank you very much. Doorbell wants to know, does Hardcore Holly come to any of these events? Man, I haven't seen him at an event in a long time. When's the last time you saw Hardcore Holly?
Oh, I bet it's been 15 or 20 years. I'd love to see Bob. Bob and I were, pretty close friends, and we wrestled together a ton of times. I really like Bob. Bob's a good guy. Yeah, I know there's negative stuff about everybody. There's a lot of negative stuff about me too. So I've always enjoyed Bob. The guys like Bob too. Bob was one of those guys that all the boys really enjoyed.
His book, by the way, is underrated. There's a lot of people who they're pretty careful with their words. Bob Holly is not one of them. He just lets it rip, Tater Chip. I think that book is called The Hardcore Truth. It's on Amazon. If you're a Bob Holly fan and you haven't read it yet, I recommend you check it out. Trigger Cheese wants to know, how's Bruce and how many cowboy hats do you have? Yeah, I talked to Bruce about a week ago when I had the official word about JR, which I know we're going to talk about in a moment. But have you talked to Bruce lately? How is Bruce? Is Bruce alive?
I have talked to Bruce. Bruce called me the other night about 10:30 at night, and I talked to him for probably 45 minutes. So yes, and I saw some of the fans' questions. I saw a couple of questions that they fit into some of the same category. A couple of them were, why are you such an asshole? Now, several people asked the same question. So I don't know if you have like different pseudonyms or if everybody's wondering why I'm an asshole. And so anyway, and the other one was, when's Bruce coming back? So I really don't know the answer to either.
So you don't know why you're an asshole or when Bruce is coming back?
Bam. Correct.
Those are the great mysteries we're going to set out to solve here.
Maybe maybe they have something to do with each other. I have no idea. Yeah, I talked to Bruce the other day. He called me. He was on his way home. And you know how Bruce is. He talks to you until he gets like busy. Then he goes, oh, I got to go. And he just hangs up on you. He asked me to come see him in D.C. And look, now listen, I love Bruce. He was groomsman at my wedding. As people have seen the picture, and my retirement, I flew with he and his wife flew with us to Bermuda to celebrate and all this stuff. My retirement. And but Bruce said, come see me in D.C. Bruce, and last thing I want to do is be the old guy that comes around and sits around catering like I'm looking for a job or something. You always hated the look of those old guys. And I swore I'd never be one of them, and I'm not going to be one of them, or at least I hope I'm not. I may be. And so he says, come see me. So I get down there, and I'm just sitting like in an empty room with him. He had the old talent relations guy that's no longer there was with him at the time. I can't think of his name. The guy that came from the Raiders. And I'm just sitting there with him. Then he said, I got to go do this meeting. I went out and he's like doing some meeting. And I'm just like sitting in the room with there's no TV. There's no monitors, nothing. I'm just like sitting there in the basement of the Washington Arena. So finally I said, Bruce, I'm bored. I'm going home. Why are you going home? He's offended. I said, because I'm bored.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds interesting and intriguing and fun, even as a wrestling fan. But once you've done it once or twice, you kind of get it. It's like, okay, everybody's working, and I'm just kind of here. I'm gonna hit the road, bud.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna leave, and nobody's gonna notice I'm leaving because I'm inconsequential.
How many cowboy hats you rocking these days? How many do you own? Do you think?
I've got the one nice one that Atwood Hats built for me, and the guy built it in a day. So I called him up, and I've told you the story. I called him up, and I said, I need a hat because I need to go to Mexico City for AAA the first time. And I was in Texas and didn't have a hat. The local cowboy store didn't have one that fit me. And so they found at the store. I said, can you build me a hat? He goes, I can build you. Yeah. He goes, when do you need it? I said, 2 days. He goes, I'll have it for you this tomorrow. He built the hat for me. So I got the one nice custom hat. I'm going to buy a couple more. I'm looking for different colors now, maybe a cream color and a black color. And then I've got a few around here, probably 3 more around here.
All right. So there you go. There's our hat information. Michael Carter saw the video of you hitting Hornswoggle with trash cans, and he wants to know, does any gold pop out when the can hits?
I used to say a little sardine flew out my ass. They used to say when you got hit with something. Yeah, it looked gold. Like if you hit him hard enough. Seriously, all joking aside, if you hit Hornswoggle hard enough, you can knock gold out of him. It's fun. Then you collect it and you polish it and take it and trade it in. So that's the only thing he's worth. Otherwise, he's worthless.
Oh, God. We're so brutal to him today. Guy W. Johns says, I want Bruce back, but I also want you to stick around, John. Do you or Conrad think this could be more of an ongoing thing, even if and when Bruce returns? Yeah, I mean, I think we've pretty much established that we're going to find a way to keep something like this going, even when Bruce is back, right?
I hope so. I got nothing else to do on Mondays. I'm looking. That's what I do. I look forward to you and the Stud Muffin, Dave Silva.
Yeah, we're going to keep.
And I got Stud Muffin before you. And I asked him because I want to know about this Mexican rapper who's a huge wrestling fan. They're doing great shows down in South Texas. And
talking about Mexican OT.
Mexican OT. Do you know him?
Yeah. Well, I don't know him, but I know them. Okay. I know that Mexican OT. Yeah.
Your partner Dave Silva doesn't know him.
He's not really Mexican. I don't know that you know that or not.
That's what I found out. And he lives in San Antonio.
I put him on that Mexican OT like 18 months ago, and he obviously didn't bother listening to it. But now he does have Freddie Fender on his favorites list. He wakes up every morning. That's his wasted days and wasted nights. I mean, that's Dave Silver every morning.
So Dave's like the ultimate like old white song guy.
Oh yeah, he knows all about Cars and Huey Lewis and the news, and yeah, that's just,
the whitest singer ever, Huey Lewis.
Oh yeah, that's his jam. Like his kids were. I hope they're not listening, but his kids were created to a Huey Lewis album. I don't think he needed the whole album. They're twins, so he probably got it done in the first song. Let's move on. Instagram, a wrestling historian, says, how do you feel about Peacock deleting your work? Like the in-ring promo at Judgment Day 2004, because it's too controversial now. Thanks in advance. Listen, some of that stuff doesn't age well. I get that with modern sensitivities and things like that. But do you think it should be deleted from Peacock?
No, I don't think so. But you know what? I don't mind it because, a lot of stuff, people take stuff that you said 20 something years ago in a different context, in a different world, and they bring it in today's woke world, and they want to cancel you for something you said that was, it's not like you hit it. I said it in the middle of a wrestling ring in front of 15,000 people, in front of national TV audience and a global audience as well. And so, but, I can understand them cutting out things that are controversial. I get it, but it's either a work or it isn't. And if you're saying it's a work, let it be a work. But I understand it. No complaints.
Hey, the Blue Meanie is with us here live. Appreciate Meanie showing up. And
happy birthday, Meanie.
He says, is today his birthday?
No, but it was recently. I saw it and I forgot to send him a happy birthday. So Meanie, a happy birthday, my brother. I love you.
I was like, I thought I wished it to him over the weekend. I may have screwed that up.
No. It was his brain. Ron Simmons' birthday was last week too.
How about that?
Yep. Meanie and Simmons, same. I don't know, not the same day, but I don't think. Well, I don't know. Okay, Ron's is May 15th, I think.
Brian says, I once worked out with Bob Holly. Afterwards, I literally could not lift my room key to unlock my hotel room door. Well, how brutal was a Bob Holly workout?
Insane, legendary intensity. I mean, imagine Bob and everything you think about him as far as being this intense, gruff, mean, tough guy. That's how he worked out. I mean, he worked out like a freaking animal. A lot of guys now, I'm sure these bodybuilders do that today too, but those guys trained, differently back then. They trained, for an hour and a half, 2 hours at a time. That's how Bob trained. He and Sid trained together a lot. I remember when I first came in, and those guys would train insane amounts of volume. I'm talking doing 30 sets of body part. I mean, it was insane what they were doing.
I feel like when Blue Meanie was training with Bob Holly, that's probably when he was reaching for the Magic Spoon, because Meanie knows that Magic Spoon makes high protein, zero sugar cereal and treats, all reinvented from your childhood. You can literally taste the nostalgia. But now Magic Spoon has launched a brand new high protein granola. And true to the Magic Spoon promise, it's packed with protein and oh so crunchy. You've heard us brag about these high protein treats from Magic Spoon before, that they're crispy, they're crunchy, they're airy, and they're an easy way to get 12 grams of protein on the go. They come in delicious flavors like marshmallow. They taste just like the ones Mom used to make. Chocolate peanut butter, which is a favorite in the Jarrett household, and dark chocolate. But my favorite is double chocolate. I've bragged about it on here for months and said I double dog dare you to try it. Our resident gimmick attorney, Mike Dawkins, tried it and sent me a picture a couple of weeks back and said, you son of a bitch, you nailed it. How am I just now trying these? They're fantastic. I mean, like you won't believe, wait a minute. There's all this protein in here. It's not loaded with sugar and it tastes this good. Well, I encourage you to not only try that, but try the brand new granola packs from Magic Spoon. You'll see 13 grams of protein there and also zero added sugars, but more delicious flavors, dark chocolate almond, honey almond, and peanut butter. And right now you can actually get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/wrestle, or look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/wrestle for $5 off. Magicspoon.com/wrestle. Use that promo code WRESTLE. John, these live questions are still coming in, and Flockwaka is with us here live, and he says, did you enjoy working with Shawn Michaels in 08 and 09? I feel like they ended the quote unquote broke HBK story too soon, and that if given more time, it could have been the best storyline of the year 2009. I've heard a lot of people say they really enjoyed that, but felt like it was cut short. You were there, you lived it. What'd you think?
I wonder in hindsight if it's cut short because they wanted Shawn and Taker at Mania is what I wonder. And I assume that's what it was. I mean, I feel like, because that's what ended up happening. So there's two things that I'm responsible for that for the business. And by the way, you're welcome for this. I wrestled Jake Roberts in, I think, the quarterfinals of the King of the Ring. And if Jake hadn't beat me, for one, I probably would have beat Steve because I was really good back then. But if Steve would have beat me, he would have never cut the religious Austin 316 promo. So he wouldn't have had the Attitude Era. He wouldn't have had Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I created Austin and the Attitude Era completely, 100% my credit. And also, if Shawn Michaels hadn't have beat me in that match, he would have gone to work for me, stayed working for me. He would have never wrestled Undertaker because I wouldn't have allowed it with one of my employees. And you might have missed the greatest match you would have missed the greatest match of all time. So I'm responsible for the greatest wrestling match of all time as well. Both those three things are 100% me, 100%.
Which is why when they one day have to, Meredith and I have to get together and get together a tombstone.
Yep.
And I have to engrave in there to be chiseled for all the world to see. And it'll describe you as
the guy that created the Attitude Era. Stone Cold Steve Austin is responsible for the greatest wrestling match of all time.
Which makes you
the GOAT. I mean, GOAT. I mean, like just GOAT. I mean, just like
how about the wrestling god?
The wrestling god. Yeah, yes. I was trying to be modest, but wrestling god actually.
I mean, I'll just do it for you. You're the wrestling god. It's well established. I mean, the facts don't lie. I mean, you created the Attitude Era single-handedly. Yep. You created Austin 316 single-handedly. You created the greatest match in WrestleMania history single-handedly.
Yep.
And I mean, I'm just saying, it may or may not have been you getting in Vince's ear saying, you should go public with this. I wrote a book about it. And then, I mean, here it is. It's a publicly traded company. It went from, that took Vince from being a millionaire to a billionaire. And people are going to say, well, that was Hogan and Austin. That was Layfield.
Nope. I'm the one that added a comma to that man's net worth.
That's it. 3 comma club. That was JBL that got it.
Yep, that was me. And as long as you're burying me, just make sure my ass is facing Oklahoma.
Why's that?
So they can kiss my ass. And so they look on the South and Red River, they can see my booty sticking out of the cemetery.
Okay, there we go. We got to touch on some news and notes about what's happening in the world today. I don't know that you saw, but it was announced that LFG has been renewed. Vicky James reports that it's been renewed for 3 more years. Quote, it was a lot of fun to be the first ever and to have the success, to know that it's gotten picked up, not just for another season, but for 3 years. So like 6 seasons, hopefully. That's a damn big deal. I loved it, and you're welcome. What do you think of LFG? This is sort of the grandchild of Tough Enough, and it lives on. It's renewed. Were you surprised? I mean, that tells you how hot wrestling is, right?
Oh, my God. No one surprised. 4 incredible talents. I mean, legendary talents. Those 4 guys and girl, 3 guys and girl. I mean, you put those guys doing anything. I don't give a shit what it is. Get them playing cards. They'll get the card game renewed. That's a load of freaking talent right there. People that can talk, really smart people. You can't go wrong with that group.
We should also talk about some other news and notes from this past week. TKO revealed that they're going to be cutting back on house shows. Mark Shapiro was doing an appearance at the JP Morgan conference, and it was made clear that moving forward, house shows are not going to be a priority. We've known that because, well, there are fewer and fewer of those. Of course, internationally, I guess that's still a different thing because, well, if you're going to make the trip over there, why not sell out some arenas or do some paid shows or what have you? But this does feel like the evolution of the business. It feels like things are changing a little bit. I mean, without house shows, I mean, I've always heard, again, I'm not in the wrestling business. I don't really know. But I've heard that business was done in the bar, but you learn in the car. It's sort of automobile university. Yep. All the stories of, hey, what worked, what didn't work, what you can do better, what you can't do better. All of that has sort of changed. First with the introduction of buses, but now with the reduced schedule, guys aren't having to travel by car as often, and they're also not going to get those same amount of reps. Again, I'm not a wrestler, but I've talked to folks who say that, hey, just running the ropes when you're doing it every day, your body kind of gets callous to it. But if you go an extended period of time without doing it, man, everything hurts and it takes you a few days to get going. I never lived it. You did. What do you think about this moving away from house shows? It feels like it was something that Vince would never do, but now with TKO in control, it looks like it's headed that way. How does that strike you?
I think it changes a lot. A lot of the business is going to change because of this. I think this makes agents and producers, whatever you want to call them, so much more valuable. We just had on our podcast, me and Gerald Briscoe, Don Felder of the Eagles, he wrote Hotel California along with Don Henley. And he was talking about the difference in software now to use to synthesize music. He goes, why, we don't need a Pro Tips. That's the software. I didn't know that until the podcast. And I said, when? He goes, when you have pros. And he goes, we didn't have that. And so because we didn't, we would work on a song every single night. And that very much the same in wrestling. We would work with, if you're working with Sean, you'd work 20, 30 times before that. You'd work out all kinds of things that work, that don't work. You'd figure all this stuff out. You'd figure things, that's one of the reasons we didn't need agents as much. We had agents then too, just like these guys. But now, because you don't have that, and guys who have not had a ton of work in their background, agents are going to be some of the most important people in wrestling, because they're going to have to put the matches together. They're going to have to, now it's much more of a production. It's Pro Tips for wrestling, and not that that's wrong, but it's going to change significantly. It also opens up massive opportunities for independents, for other promotions, because you have these second tier towns are not going to be run at all from WWE at all. I mean, talk about the minor league baseball model. No one's running these towns, not WWE. All they can run is the big arenas, and they're making so much money. I don't blame WWE. I don't blame them at all, but it's going to change the business significantly over time.
I don't know, but I think you're talking about Pro Tools, the music software.
Is it Pro Tools?
Yeah, it's Pro Tools is the music software. I only know that because I got a nerd buddy who pretends to teach.
I thought it was Pro Tips. I thought he said when he said it, I'd never heard of it before, and obviously
Pro Tools. We're all learning something here to get together today.
But that's the difference. It's like like the old guys, and I'm not saying it doesn't matter. So look at Steamboat and Savage. That was an incredible match. The whole thing was memorized by numbers. Look at Steamboat and Flair. Great match. None of it was called in the back. It's just both are great. What matters is what is the product that you get out of it. So it's not like this is good or bad as far as, this isn't how you do the business. Who gives a shit how you do the business? These guys are selling out arenas. But now, because they're not being able to do all these matches to get ready for the pay-per-views, agents and producers, camera angles, and all the things that you can do with the bells and whistles is going to become a lot more important.
We also want to touch on some other news. It looks like WWE is planning to hold 3 major live events in Mexico, all centered around a show called Super Show Mexico. We've also heard that they have trademarked King of the Luchadors, they being WWE. And we know now that AAA is going to have TNA and AAA, and we believe WWE talent on June 15th at the Arena Monterrey. It does feel like there's a gold rush south of the border right now. Like Mexico is like ground zero for the wrestling war right now. We know AEW in like a month is going to be running their big show at Arena Mexico. I think it sold out almost immediately. We know that June 7th is when we're going to see the Super Show in LA. And then that night is when we'll see Money in the Bank. But if they've got like a little tour set up of Mexico, now, with this AAA involvement, this will really be the first time we've seen something like this. I know you've been down there some for AAA. How excited are you to see what this looks like, a WWE AAA partnership in Mexico?
Well, I will say it, June 15th, I'll be there in Monterrey.
Okay.
I think they've already announced it, so I'm not giving away something that I shouldn't. But, yeah, I'm going to be there. Hopefully it's announced. If not, I just announced it, but I think it's been announced. I'm pretty sure it has, because somebody asked me about it recently. I'm very excited about it. And it's one of these things where, you don't know you want it until the other side grabs it. And I think that's what it is. I think it's, people they've wanted the Hispanic audience for so long. And, like it's a massive part of our country, talking about the United States. And to do that, you need a pipeline of luchadors, great Hispanic talent. You can do it with white talent, black talent, but it helps to have the people that speak the language as well, especially when you're doing publicity for it. And I think this is a huge part of it. And now all of a sudden you're seeing WWE making this huge inroads into it. They've been planning this, apparently for a while. It certainly looks that way. Again, I don't have any inside knowledge of this that I'm giving away. And now you're seeing AEW try to respond. So now it's just kind of a chess match going back and forth between the two.
We should talk a little bit about some other news and notes from a Hollywood side of things. Miz was announced as being the new host of American Gladiators, which is obviously a big opportunity. And we know that Batista has recently been quoted about comparing wrestling with being in Hollywood. And he says that Hollywood is kind of a cakewalk compared to being in the pro wrestling biz. I love when we see guys cross over, and clearly Batista has enjoyed a lot of success. But Miz being the potential new host of American Gladiators, if it's the nostalgia that we all grew up on, man, I'm for that. I'm pumped to see it.
Yeah, I think Miz is going to do awesome. I remember when he came in, he said something. I said, "What do you want to be?" And he said something like, "I want to be the next Ryan Seacrest." And I'd never heard anybody kind of phrase it like that. It's like, I want to be the next Hogan. I want to be this. And when he said that, but he didn't say that in exclusion of wrestling. It was kind of the transition. The guy who would transcend the sport to other things. And he's becoming it. He's doing a hell of a job. I've said so many times about Miz, I have so much respect for him because he learned on a global platform. That's next to impossible. He didn't have the territories to learn from. He didn't have a school really to learn from. He gets stuck out there on Tough Enough, and all of a sudden he's on national television, and he's built this Hall of Fame career. There's not many people in the world that could have done what he's done, and it's quite amazing, and I think he'll do a great job.
Let's talk a little bit about some news that I know is going to be of particular interest to you. Early this morning, it was posted on social media that AEW's Darby Allin reached the top of Mount Everest. And of course, there he posted the AEW flag for social media. I mean, this is a short list for people who've actually reached the summit of Mount Everest. And I know that once upon a time, that was even a goal of yours, or may have been, because I remember you climbing a bunch of mountains. Can you sort of contextualize what a big deal this is for people who maybe have never looked into it? Like, climbing Mount Everest is a hell of a commitment.
Yeah, it's a hell of a financial commitment. It's a hell of a physical commitment. I mean, it's a dangerous commitment. I mean, you take your life in your own hands, literally. I could not be more excited for Darby Allin. This is fucking massive. This is huge. I was so happy. I just didn't. And I don't want people to take this wrong. I just didn't think he'd make it, because I guess I didn't know he's a mountaineer. I didn't know he's a climber. This is world class. This is like having to do a marathon at 29,000 feet. Now think about this. If you get out at 29,000 feet on an airplane, you die. You're climbing that high. Now you acclimatize to it. You go up, you come back down, you go up, come down, all the way up and down. But I mean, it is brutal up there. They call it the death zone. Not because it's hospitable and it's nice and you take selfies up there. It's because people die up there. You're walking by bodies that have been up there for decades, that known as green boots. They know them by what they wear, because you have to walk by them. You can't get them down. They're too far up there. It is an amazing accomplishment. I am so happy for him.
I don't know that I knew that. You climb over dead bodies to get there.
Yep, you don't actually step over the bodies. There's the guy, green boots, that was right around, I can't remember where it is, 28,000 feet. But he's just to the side. So you don't actually climb over, but you walk right by them. You walk by some dead bodies that are used as landmarks because you can't get them down.
My God, that gives a whole new context to this.
Shout out. I was training for Vincent is what I was training for. So I'd been on Kilimanjaro. I'd been on Elbrus in Russia, and I'd been on Aconcagua, the highest mountain outside the Himalayas in Argentina. And I fell off a mountain in California, and got hurt really bad. Had to have surgery. That's one of the reasons that I laid out for a year, because I screwed up my back so bad when I fell off the freaking mountain. So that was one of the reasons I didn't never go down to Vincent, because I thought I could make Vincent down. I was doing 7 summits, and I thought I might do the one in I guess Papua New Guinea, but the 2 tough ones were Denali in Alaska, which that's a tough one to make, and of course Everest. And I had no idea. I didn't know if I even had the ability, but I wanted to try.
Well, I want you to try my friends at Envision Marketing Consultants. If you're a small business owner and you're trying to grow and you need more leads, look no further than my guy. Any of my friends who say, hey, man, I need some more leads for my small business, what would you recommend? I always say, I got a guy. His name is Eric Nichols. The name of the company is Envision Marketing Consultants. And I feel so strongly, I've loaned him my name at conradsguy.com. Just go talk to my guy. If you're trying to grow your business through SEO or pay per click or targeted display, maybe you just need ads on the different streaming services like Hulu, YouTube, or Amazon. If your company's doing any of that or they want to do any of that, look no further than conradsguy.com. My buddy Eric Nichols can take a look. These guys have decades of experience, but most importantly, I trust they're staying on top of the technology and that they're optimizing my campaigns. I'm talking to you if you're B2B or retail or food and beverage or manufacturing or nonprofits. Hell, if they can do it for mortgages, they can do it for you too. I strongly recommend you take a look because even if Eric and his team can't help your company and they think you're on the right track, they'll tell you that too. But trust me, it's worth a little bit of time it'll take. I mean, we've all heard the buzzword, the algorithm. Well, that's changing every day. How can you possibly stay on top of the algorithm and your business? You can't. You need a guy. You need conradsguy.com. Envision Marketing Consultants can hook you up. They're going to show you how to get more leads. You'll understand the space better. You'll understand what you're buying better, and you're going to drive more revenue with Envision Marketing Consultants. We're smart, but simple marketing drives results. That's conradsguy.com.
Hey, Conrad, has Darby ever climbed before?
I don't know. I mean, I know he's a daredevil. I have to assume that he has. I don't know that your first one is Mount Everest, but if that's true, that makes it even more remarkable, doesn't it?
It's unbelievable because he may have been a climber his whole life. I have no idea, his background. I know he's a very athletic guy. He's great, obviously in terrific shape. He's in terrific shape if he does that. But my God, man, that is, you start on a mountain that you can die easy, and to do that, it's just amazing what he's done. I'm so happy for him. That had to be so cool to be up at the top of the freaking mountain and then to know all you got to do is come down now. That's pretty cool.
It is interesting to think, we heard he was training for it and he was getting ready for it, but he actually started the climb on April 8th and I guess he reached the top today and now he's got to make his way back down. But man, what a commitment. I mean, you're taking your own life in your own hands, like you're saying, but you're also carving off quite a bit of time away from your real life to do this. This is an incredible commitment, and I'm happy for him.
Yeah, when I looked at it, at the time it was $63,000 for the permit to climb.
Oh,
now that may have included I can't remember if they included the guide or not, but it was 63 grand was the base rate. I don't know what it had, no idea what it is now.
Well, speaking of money, we got to talk about some money moves. We got the questions pouring in, so keep those coming for JBL. But I do want to ask you about some crazy news that I saw that I just kind of was shocked. Hulk Hogan and Real American Brands want to acquire the Hooters intellectual property. This is part of a mission to take over existing brands that represent what America is all about, freedom, grit, and good times, and bring them back to relevance. This is a report from TMZ. I wonder if this is just, a publicity stunt or if this is real, because I have to admit, once upon a time, I went to Hooters and watched the UFC. Once upon a time, I went to Hooters and watched SummerSlam. Like, I know that Hulk Hogan is certainly trying to cater to men with Real American Freestyle and Real American Beer. And he certainly got a partnership with TKO, who obviously owns WWE and UFC. So I could see, Hulk Hogan is a nostalgia brand in and of himself. I could see it, I guess, but I just didn't have it on my bingo card. What do you make of this report that Hulk Hogan might be trying to acquire Hooters?
I think it makes sense. I mean, from a business point of view, I worked as an investment banker for several years on Wall Street. Somebody came to me with this idea. I would say this makes a lot of sense because the branding is getting so important in America right now. People are picking sides, either partisan sides or national sides. They're wanting to choosing to wrap themselves in the American flag. And I'm not talking whether any of this is good or bad. I'm just talking about what people are doing, and I think it makes sense. To have something that is branded that a lot of people want to be associated with. I'm talking about the national view now, hey, America's great, America's this, and, wrap yourself in the American flag. I think it makes a lot of sense.
It is going to be interesting to see how it plays out if it's real. I guess I heard a few weeks back, we saw from social that right across the street from Madison Square Garden, Hulk Hogan is taking over the old Scores location. Yes, the Gentleman's Club. And it's going to become a sports bar. And I guess the ceiling is going to look like Madison Square Garden, and there'll be a bunch of Madison Square Garden and Hulk Hogan stuff on the inside, but it's going to be called Hulk Hogan Score Sports Bar or something like that. If this is the next piece of that, and we're going to have the Scores brand and we're going to have the Hooters brand, boy, we're doubling down on guys here, are we not?
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Let's do some questions here. We've got Alex, who says, was there ever a move or a spot that you said, nope, not doing that, or nope, not taking that one? Was there a move or a hold or a finish or something that you were like, thanks for thinking of me, I'm going to have to pass on that?
There were a few throughout my career. The only one that I regret, it was later in my career, and I'd gotten hurt a lot. Cena wanted to put Orlando on his shoulders and me on top and do the double AA to us. And I knew I'd get hurt because I'd been hurt so many times recently with that. I thought, I'm just going to get hurt. I'm going to hurt my back. I thought physically I can't take it. And I had to tell John, I think I'm going to get hurt. And I just, to this day, I regret that. I just, it's not a shitty thing to do, but it just felt shitty. It felt shitty that as much as I love John and everything, I just, and he ended up hitting me with an AA or Orlando with an AA or both of us, different times. But I wanted to do it. I just knew I physically couldn't do it. And that's when I realized, it's about time for me to get out of here.
Did you, how many times were you in a ladder match?
I think only once. I was on one with Jeff Hardy, and I remember he's hitting me over the head, and he goes, you got to take a bump. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. Like that. I hate heights.
I mean, I looked through a cage match and I couldn't find where there was a ladder match because
I think I was in one with Jeff Hardy, I believe. I remember there was a ladder in the ring, and I remember taking a bump off at the end, but I don't remember what was a ladder match or what it was.
Don't you think you get to a certain height or weight where you're like, no thanks, I'm not going to do a ladder spot. There's no upside.
Yeah, I was working a cage match with Eddie one time, and I had to be on top of the cage at the end, and I'm scared of heights, and so I sat up there all day trying to get over my fear of heights. I didn't tell anybody what I was doing. I just kind of sat up there like I was thinking, but I was trying to get over my fear of heights, and my fear doesn't change, doesn't get worse, doesn't get better. It's just I just don't like heights. And I remember at one point with Eddie, he's punching me, and I'm holding on to the cage. He's going, "You got to hit me back, Essay." I can't. I'm scared. I'm scared.
Nozama Sub says, JBL, which wrestler could you always find eating their fill in catering? And do you have any wild catering stories? So who was notorious for spending a lot of time and really putting a dent in catering? And do you have any funny catering story?
Yeah, there was one time when Big Show was supposed to be losing weight, and he had like a whole gallon of milk or something with cookies. He was like dipping in the milk. He's like eating all of it. And then he heard Vince was coming, and he got like a bottle of water or something, was like walking around. And he had lost some weight, but he's walking around with his shirt off, and he looked good. But he had also eaten a lot of milk and cookies that day too.
I don't know why there's even milk and cookies in catering.
Oh my God, it had to drive Vince nuts. Vince never went in there. He didn't go in catering. He got his meals brought to him.
And from what I understand, and again, I don't know, but we've all heard it was like a steak at every meal, right? He's going to eat steak.
Oh yeah, he had a steak every single time I saw him. Yeah, 100%. And it was perfunctory. I mean, he didn't have meals to have like friendship time. He ate because he had to. And he'd eat a certain amount. And he said at a certain time, he'd eat really fast. That was it. And he just got done with it. It was something you had to do.
Does he ever just go to dinner like a normal human being with friends and have wine and enjoy himself?
They used to have,
but did he back then?
They used to have some drinks with the boys. And sometimes he'd take the guys out to Smith and Lewinsky after the Garden.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But that was more of just kind of, and that was business though. It wasn't just, fun. But no, as far as, hey, I'm going to see you on Thursday night, let's have dinner and just have a good time. That doesn't happen that I know of.
It always tickled me to hear, because we would hear these reports that Vince had this great spread down in Florida and he had this awesome yacht down there and, he had this cool boat. But it's like, this dude doesn't want any of that shit, really. Like, he just wants to be working. Like, it's hard for me to imagine him being like, let's just go meet after work and have a beer. I just don't see Vince doing that at all.
He asked me when I goes, how in the world do you sit out there on a golf course for 4 fucking hours? My God. It's like that. That's the worst thing that you could ever do to Vince. Like, I'm going to make you have fun for 4 hours with your friends. No, I refuse.
I love that. Ramon says, can you break down wrestling psychology for us? What are some of your favorite matches and wrestlers that are great psychologists? Yeah, I mean, listen, I know you could talk about that until next week's episode, but briefly, you know, the basic psychology of a wrestling match. We'll bring it to that, like the psychology of a match. I've heard people who are smarter than me sort of break down the way a match is broken up. When you're thinking about structuring the psychology of a match between a baby face and the heel, can you take us through the basic match structure, John?
All I'm worried about is the heat. To me, I know I'm gonna let the baby face. I was a heel. I'm gonna let the baby face get whatever they want as far as the shine, as long as it's realistic. You know, if I'm working with a top guy, it will be. You know, some younger guys don't understand and want to do too much or don't want to do enough, which is also a problem. I'm just worried about the heat. I want to get the heat right and then get to go home, and I could care less about everything else going up to that. Now, there's a difference in, say, an 8-minute match. An 8-minute match, anybody can do an 8-minute match. Anybody on the planet can do an 8-minute match. It's very simple. It's very formulaic. You go out there, you shine the baby face, you get heat, you go home. To do a 30 to 45-minute match or longer, that takes some real work because that takes a roller coaster going back and forth. But it's all a matter of where do you want to get people at what point. So I always had tent poles. And I know I'd want to be here at 12 minutes or 15 minutes. I know I'd want to be a certain place at 25 minutes. Then I want to get my heat at a certain place, maybe half an hour, because I want to be able to go home, before 40 minutes. And I want to know where we are as far as, so I'd have tent poles, and that's how I'd work out matches. From what I hear, and I don't know guys like Rick, how they did it, but Jack Briscoe did the same thing. Jerry's told me. He would have 4 15-minute matches when he go an hour to make sure. But same thing I'm saying. I just do it I called them tent poles. I do the same thing with the promo. I wouldn't memorize promos. I'd memorize tent poles in promos. So I know I got to get here, then I got to get here, then I got to get here. So if I ever get lost, I don't have to worry about what I'm saying next. I know I got to get to here. Then I'd figure out how to get there. Then I'd get a different place. Then I know what the go home is.
Let's do another question here from Grooney, who says, hey, JBL, what's your favorite wrestler's court story? Do you remember when Mick Foley got brought up on charges for leaving Hardcore Holly at the airport and going to a carnival? Does that ring a bell?
No, it doesn't. It kind of does, but no, not really. I don't. No, it doesn't. And the funniest one to me was always going to be Teddy Long selling the free Viagra. That was the best. You know, Viagra had just come out. And Teddy, because he's 184 years old, got Viagra from the doctor, and guys like, what does this do to you? He goes, oh, it's like a sex super drug. Oh my God. So everybody wants it, to see what it is. And so Teddy started selling them. And that's when me and Ron took him to court for selling free Viagra. And, he's told the story a million times. So have I. Mae Young was his, was his attorney. It was tremendous. She kept calling it Niagara. She had no idea what it was. It was tremendous.
John Collins wants to know, is your book in audio form? He thinks that more wrestling fans would consume wrestler biographies or wrestler books if they were in audio form. Did you ever do an audio book version of yours?
Nope, never did. Just wrote the book, and I was happy to write it. I wasn't a big enough name to write. I wanted to write a financial book because I had a passion for that, and I thought I could write a better financial. I really believe it sounds altruistic, but it really was true. I thought I could write a better financial book than what I'd read. And I wanted to read like a narrative. So I put a ton of wrestling stories in there to make it read like a narrative. And, I thought it was pretty good, but it sold, I guess, well. But no audio version came out.
Doorbell wants to know, what move was stiffer, the clothesline from hell or the Dominator?
The Dominator. Oh my God. I'm so glad I didn't take that. He broke Road Dogg's big toes one time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, on Saturday Night Heat. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, I would hear Ron. He's like a sack of bricks when Ron hit a guy with the Dominator. Now Ron will tell you that my clothesline is much worse than his Dominator. But I'm telling the story, not him right now. So I get to talk. But when I'd hear, it'd be like a sack of bricks. It would hit the floor. Just splat, like a human being has just lost all their organs through the mat. It was awesome. Ron was so freaking strong. You know, I tried to get Bobby Lashley to do that, and Ron said it was fine. He'd give him his blessing, and Bobby did it a couple of times, but for some reason never kept doing it.
Alex is wanting to know where you draw the line. He wants to know, how do you differentiate someone from being stiff with you versus someone taking it too far, and how patient are you with giving receipts? So is there a line like, hey, if I'm bleeding, that's the line, or if I need a stitch, that's the line, or is it just a gut feeling before you decide, hey, that was an accident, or okay, it's time to return fire?
No, and if it's a person I know that has done it on accident, there's no receipt. Absolutely not. You get hit, and that's part of life. And so I wasn't one that gave receipts. You know, if I'm working with somebody I don't know, you know, but that's how things escalate too. You got to be very careful. You know, somebody fires one a little bit hard, and you fire one back, and all of a sudden one of you thinks it's a live round, and then, you know, shit escalates. You know, that's how it happens. But that's part of the business, at least the way it was. But no, I was never big on giving receipts, because I figured if guys, you know, we work stiff, and I work stiff, and if guys hit you, that's just part of it. It wasn't a big deal to me.
219 Soso wants to know, how do you feel about NIL deals in the PC? This is something we've never talked about, but there are name, image, and likeness deals with athletes who are going to be members of the Performance Center. What do you think of that? You know, where WWE is now reaching out to kids in college and sort of stating their claim, hey, we want you to come work with us someday. What do you think of that?
I think it's something that is a whole new opportunity for kids. I say kids, they're kids to me, but they're grown people if they're in college. I shouldn't call them kids. I think it's great because it gives them an opportunity to expand themselves immediately, and you can figure out who they are before they come in. If someone gets an NIL deal and all of a sudden that person takes off either social media wise or some other way, or training wise, or whatever they're doing, you know that person's got something that you want in them. And so I think it's a great barometer of talent when you get them in, about who you've got before you have to put them on TV and put them under contract.
Luis Espinoza says, do referees get more money for taking a bump? That's a fair question. If there's a big bump, do they get a little extra cheese on their Whopper, as JR would say?
They used to. I don't know if they do or not. You know, I'm sure now it's part of the, you know, baked into their contract now, whatever it is. But they used to, yeah. You used to get extra money for bumping, for juicing, for all kinds of things.
Jacob is with us here live from Poland. Appreciate you showing up, Jacob. And he says, my question is, who should be John Cena's last opponent, and whether instead of a PLE, his last match should be on a Saturday night's main event so all of America can give him a farewell. I don't know that he was supposed to reveal this, but the other John Cena, his dad, did an interview with a Boston news station that kind of spilled the beans last week, where he said his final appearance is going to be at TD Garden in December, and it'll be a Saturday night's main event. Now, we don't know if that's fake news or false information, but that's the report from John Cena's dad, and it does make us believe, and I actually buy into this. If I'm NBC, if I'm Peacock, if I'm NBC Universal, I want that opportunity on broadcast television and my app. So I get why they would want to do it there. I think it makes a ton of sense to let more people see it. But if they're doing it in Boston, who do you hope the last opponent is going to be this December for John Cena?
Wow. You know, I don't know if it's Cody, Roman. You know, to get Cena's last opponent, that's oh, you got one of the biggest stars. You have to have somebody that's equal to Cena, and there aren't but just a handful of people in the world that are equal to Cena. You know, if it's Brock, I don't know who it'd be. I mean,
it could be The Rock. It could be Cena.
I'm sorry, The Rock. Yeah, of course. You know, completely. You know, Rock's so big. You know, if you forget, yeah, could be The Rock.
I mean, if you really want to make a big splash, the biggest possible splash for Saturday night's main event for NBC, for Peacock, I mean, The Rock and John Cena makes sense. But at that point, I mean, neither one of those guys are going to be on the show the following week. So the old way of thinking in wrestling is to say, well, you need to sort of pass the torch. And that makes me think it might not even be a guy like CM Punk. It probably does need to be someone like Cody. Or do you go younger and you say, hey, it's Braun Breaker, it's Dominic Mysterio, it's one of those guys? And there's plenty of time to get there and figure out how we're going to get there. But do you think it is one last time, him and Rock? Do you think it's a rematch from WrestleMania with Cody, or do you think he'll pass the torch to a younger star?
Somebody's going to quote this and take this completely out of context. And I know it before I say it. I wouldn't be surprised for Cena to choose somebody that is not in the main event picture right now and do the job, because that's John Cena. John Cena is the most unselfish guy in the freaking world. And he loves this business. He's the most respectful guy I've nearly ever met in my life. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him choose somebody that he knows is going to be a star, give him the rub, and go out on his shield.
Can you imagine, though? I mean, if it was a guy like Braun Breaker, like Braun's next several years of his career are walking around with the feather in his cap of I'm the guy who retired John Cena, right?
That's right. Yeah. Be this very same thing that Undertaker did for Brock.
Yes.
You know, the guys.
At that point, you could argue Brock didn't need it, but
correct.
Totally leveling Braun up where you would think, hey, he beat John Cena in his last match. If that's December,
right?
And he fucks around and wins the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, you know, that's
a bona fide main eventer.
Yep, that's Vince's mindset too. You know, and I'm saying Vince's mindset. It's the old mindset. You know that generally, you know, Triple H is, you know, pretty much has the same type mindset. You know, you did the same thing with Baron Corbin and Kurt Angle, and so you know that's kind of a time. I don't care if it's a time honored tradition. It's the time honored best way to do business, because you're creating the next star. And as unselfish as John Cena is, I would not be surprised to see that happen.
We're still taking these questions here live. Keep them coming. We do want to hit one here from. Oh wait, you know what? Blue Meanie's with us, and he says, "Does John remember the wrestler's court for Test that Test didn't even realize was about him until halfway through?" I got to hear this story.
I don't remember the whole time. I remember Test not realizing it was about him. I can't remember what he was taking to court for. You know, Test was a good guy, but man, he could not understand things at times. It's a nice Meanie will understand that. But yes, yeah. Somebody was telling me about Test the other day, and yes, I do remember it. Test finally found out it was about him. I can't remember what it was for, but I do remember it very, very well.
John says, and I didn't know this, Global billed you as the cousin to Barry Windham. How did you feel about that? And did Barry or Blackjack Mulligan ever say anything? I didn't know that.
Oh, I hated it too. I absolutely hated it. Gary Hart did that. Global didn't do it. No, I don't want to correct John. John, you are correct to say that the Global did it. It was they did it because of Gary Hart. Gary Hart was doing commentary. I'm from Sweetwater, Texas. Legitimately grew up in Sweetwater, Texas. And lived at 1610 Haley Street in Sweetwater, Texas. Went to Sweetwater High School, so my picture's still there in the high school. But Barry Windham, Blackjack said he was from Sweetwater because it was a cool name. He was from somewhere around Austin or something like that. So when I first started in Global, Gary Hart didn't know me, had never met me. He just saw me in the ring, knew I was from Sweetwater, and he said, you know, that's Barry Windham's cousin. And so it took off from there. I actually got booked a couple of times because people thought I was Barry Windham's cousin, which I always corrected everybody because I didn't want heat over, you know, I didn't know Mulligan was a guy that could, you know, punch a hole through a wall at that time either, but I didn't want heat over, you know, claiming I was somebody's cousin when I wasn't. And so I hated it. I mean, absolutely hated it. And I went to Japan and people were asking me, are you Barry Windham's cousin? I always said no. And, but it lived on for quite a while. I met Barry, and Barry had never heard of it, never brought it up. You know, it was so far, you know, beneath his radar that it didn't matter. So no, Windham nor Mulligan ever said anything to me about it. I was horribly embarrassed by it.
We got another fun question here about Perry Saturn. Captain Marvel wants to know, what are your thoughts on Perry Saturn? Do you have any funny stories of Perry Saturn?
I went out with Perry a lot. He was fun. He went out with me and Ron a lot. Perry was a good dude. You know, I know he's been off. I have no idea what he's doing now. Perry was a great dude. We had a lot of fun together. We had a lot of fun. We went out quite often. He went with me and Ron. Perry's, you know, tough guy, good worker. I loved the mop gimmick. I thought it was hilarious. But no, I know no extra stories. Just he was a really good guy to both me and Ron.
I'm sure you saw the footage where there was a match on Sunday Night Heat where maybe things didn't go exactly how Mr. Saturn expected them to go. And well, he as you and Ron might have said, if they don't want to go to the tables, we'll bring the tables to them. Did you see that ass whooping?
I don't know if I saw it live. I remember it very well when it happened. Yes, but I don't think I saw it live. I think we heard about it. Of course you heard about it. He beat the shit out of a guy that was not cooperative or whatever it was. Shit happens, and people look at it now, and I don't know if people, I don't know what the feedback is now about it. If people say it was good, it was bad, it was indifferent, if Perry was wrong, if Perry was right, I have no idea what people say. We didn't give a shit about it. Sometimes those things happen, and a guy's not cooperative. Perry thought he wasn't working with him. I guess I think that's what it was, and he beat him up.
We're talking about Mike Bell, if you've never seen the footage, and I would encourage you, if you've never seen that match, throw it in your Google machine. Perry Saturn and Mike Bell. It was from Sunday Night Heat. It may have been a dark match, but Lord have mercy, he beat the shit out of him. It was stiff. And speaking of stiff, today's episode is brought to you by Blue Chew. They've got Blue Chew Max now. It's like a hot tag for your wiener, and you will be the APA because you'll feel like you're always pounding ass. Thanks to Blue Chew Max, it combines the active ingredients of Viagra and Cialis into one chewable. It's a combo that acts fast and it lasts. And you can actually get your first month of Blue Chew free. All you do is go right now and sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA. They're prepared and shipped directly to your door. And the best part is it's all done online. And that means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversation, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. So make your life easier by getting harder and discover your options at bluechew.com. We've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of Blue Chew free when you use the promo code WRESTLE. Just pay $5 shipping. That's promo code WRESTLE. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. John, we got a question here from KP Savant. He's dying for me to ask this to you. He wants to know, what mindset did it take to go from tag team mid-cardish to becoming a world champion?
It took a pretty good progression. I'd been like a lot of guys who came into WWE. Back when I came to WWE, it's like recruiting for a college. Everybody was a big star in high school. A few guys weren't. A few guys came in where, could be top guys, pretty much anywhere or right away. But most guys had been a top guy somewhere. So I'd been a champion in, different territories. I thought I'd be a champion in WWE. But when I got there, I realized after a while, it may not happen. You think you're ready. Then when you get there, you realize you're not ready. But then after a while, I thought, I was ready, but it wasn't going to happen because I was part of the tag team, which I was very happy with. I was very happy being a tag team partner of Ron Simmons, and would have, like I've said that many times, been a partner with Ron until the day I died, and been happy, retired or whatever. Ron was older than me, and Ron retired, basically the same age I retired later. And when he did, I was kind of on my own and just kind of got lucky in the run. And the mindset was, fortunately I'd had all this history of, I'd had main event matches, not a lot in WWE, but I'd had a lot of, in different territories. So I thought I knew my way around a little bit. And fortunately, I was with Eddie Guerrero, and then I had one future Hall of Famer after another for my entire run. I was very lucky. I was surrounded by great people.
Let's do a question here from Matthew Rodriguez, who says, did you think the Tony Storm with the timeless character could be great in WWE? And how big will Tony Storm be with this character? Fun fact, Dustin Rhodes says the Tony Storm character reminds him of early Goldust. I do agree. First of all, I think she's done a fabulous job in AEW, but I can't help but think, man, that does feel like a WWE gimmick. It does feel like a presentation that Vince would have absolutely loved. I know he's not there anymore and it's a different era, but that feels like that's right in his wheelhouse, some of that presentation. And I know that some of that is because Mike Mansory, who's pulling the cords behind the scenes with AEW. You and I are both friends with him, and he's sort of their Kevin Dunn, if you will. And I know that a lot of the black and white presentation and the transitions and stuff like that, like it feels like it has WWE fingerprints on it, because in a way it does, because I mean, that's Mike. And I absolutely love the way they've presented the character. Have you had a chance to see any of it? How do you think it would have worked in a different era with WWE?
Mike Mansouri's a brilliant dude.
Yes.
He is just a brilliant dude. Mike is so fun to work with. And you're right. He's their Kevin Dunn. And that's a great analogy because I think Kevin Dunn is one of the greatest producers in television history. Mike is terrific at what he does. I saw the one thing she said about what she said about Stan Hansen and taking the lariat. Was that her? That was her, right?
Yes.
Oh my God, that was great. I just thought it was so good the way she said it, the way she talks. I think she's absolutely fantastic. I love what she does. I don't see a lot of it because I don't watch AEW, but I don't watch WWE that much either. You know, I'll catch up with stuff on social media. And I see clips and stuff, and otherwise, you know, I'm betting on sports. so I'm not. I watch mostly stuff through social media clips. But what I've seen of her, I think, is absolutely fantastic. I love the character she has, and you're right. This is a throwback, and that has Mike Mansouri fingerprints, at least to me, all over it.
You know, listen, I know you're going to get a little bit of shit for saying that you don't watch AEW and WWE every week. And I know that Eric Bischoff doesn't either. And here's the reality. I don't get a chance to either every week because we're all busy through our regular work day. And a lot of times the only time we have with our spouse is in that dinner time, those last few hours before bed and things like that. So whether you've got 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever you've got, like just to interface with your wife, it's probably not real high on her list to say, hey, let's see what old Cody Rhodes is up to tonight. She might not love wrestling. And if she doesn't, now you find yourself watching it the next day and you're skipping around to find exactly what you're looking for. That's at least the way I find myself watching wrestling. My wife is not interested in watching wrestling the 5 nights a week it's on TV.
Yeah, and mine is not either. She didn't watch it when I was on Wrestling 5.
Can't ask her to watch if she didn't watch you can't ask her to watch strangers either. I get
it. That's right. Yeah, I'll tell her once in a while. Hey, I did something you want to see. She didn't want to see it. I didn't even show her I don't even think I showed. I didn't. I didn't show her the Hornswoggle clip. You know, she would find that funny because she likes Hornswoggle very much. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's so much. It's hard to keep up with it. But I do keep up with it on social media. You know, it's just I still love the business and I still love watching wrestling. When I was at that matches in Wisconsin, I sat there and watched some of the matches. It was a lot of fun. They told me the other day that Ron was a place there before me. You know, he'd been an appearance there, and he said Ron just sat by himself over in the corner and just watched all the matches and just watched every single one of them, and then came back and he said he's the most nice guy about telling people about what good things they had done and giving them good advice and good feedback. You know, a lot of us old guys just still love watching the business, and we enjoy it. That doesn't mean we choose to do it every single night, but when we do, we love watching good matches and good promos.
Oh,
that's why I love some of that stuff Toni Storm does. I think she's great.
Let's do some questions from Twitter. We took to Twitter earlier today and let everybody know we'd be going live. And here's one from Dwayne James. He says, I once asked Barry Windham who in wrestling was his favorite drinking partner. And he replied, Bradshaw. When he gets drunk, you have to see him do his dance. Is John known to be a dancing drinker? What is the dance? Do you have a drunk dance or a drinking dance?
Oh, yeah. I've got a drunk dance. Yeah, and it's god awful. It's god awful. It's like I tell you what it is. It's the Deion Sanders end zone dance. Remember the Deion Sanders end zone dance? He'd do almost like the Icky Shuffle, but he would do it a little dramatic. For people out there, they'll know nobody idea what the Icky Shuffle was.
I know it.
Of course you do, from Cincinnati. It was a great touchdown dance. But Deion used to do that great dance, and he would do it running down the field. I used to love Deion. They asked him one time, they said, what do you think about when it's just you and the punters between you and the goal line? He said, what are you thinking? He said, strike up the band. Deion was the best. But he used to do that dance, and that's where I got it from. And I don't do it near as well, but that's what I would do when I get drunk. I do that dance. Booker T would say, you got one move. You got one stupid move, and you're not any good at it. But that's what I would do.
Nikki the Good wants to know, was there ever a clothesline from hell that you said to yourself, that may have been too hard?
Yeah, Shane McMahon. Yeah, he had hit me with a chair. In fact, he hit me so hard with a chair, he signed it and mailed it to me one year for Christmas. The chair, I've still got it with Shane's signature. I got this huge dent in it. The chair, he hit me so hard. Shane told me, he said, you hit me as hard as you've hit anybody. You can't be easy on me. You've got to hit me incredibly hard. And he come running around the ring, and oh my God, did I hit him? And when I did, Ron and I are walking by him. Ron goes, "We're fired. We're fired." And that was it, because he said, you just killed the boss's son. And Shane thought it was the greatest thing ever. That was stiff.
Coach Rosie wants to know, what is the story behind 5 best bets? I'm really enjoying the fruits of your labor.
I just like betting on baseball. I've always liked betting on baseball. I like numbers. I like figuring out numbers. And so I came up with 5 best bets, because I think, if you put out, 15 or 20 bets, people don't know, what your priority is. And so I just came up with the idea of 5 best bets. I debated like 3 or 7, and I thought 5 kind of makes sense. It's hard to get to 5 sometimes. Sometimes it's hard to cut them to 5 if it's, a huge slate of games. Today was kind of hard. Today was a kind of a hard slate to figure out. I talked to some pro bettors today. Some of them are even laying off today because of the matchups are tough. But I just love numbers. That's why I loved working on Wall Street. I just love figuring out numbers. And baseball is all about numbers. Baseball is all about how do pitchers match up against left-handed batters, against right-handed batters, against strikeout rate, against whiff rate. It's just baseball's made for guys that are nerds like me that love numbers.
I love scrolling Twitter and looking for these questions, because every now and again you'll find a deep cut like this one from the Silvered Grunion, who says, "I'd ask Layfield if he's bought any good swords lately. He tags me on this because I busted balls last week with Tony Schiavone on his podcast that said, if you were the type of guy who had a sword hung over your bed in your master bedroom, you're probably not going to be my friend. We're probably not going to get along." So I was busting balls about sword owners. And then as I'm doing that, I'm looking behind you, and I can't help but notice a variety of swords that you can kill me with very easily, I'm sure. Have you bought any good swords lately, John?
No, none lately. I do have, because I had some down here that I put. This was my Tenru sword right here. So that was the sword that when I signed with Tenru, it was my first big, not big, it was my first contract where I made a little bit of money. And in Ueno Station, that's where the guys used to get their weed, but they also had Animal Hamaguchi's gym was upstairs there. We used to go to the Animal Hamaguchi's gym, and I'd pass by these swords all the time. I always wanted to buy them, but I couldn't afford them when I was working for NOW in Kendo, Nagasaki, and go to Animal Hamaguchi's gym. That's where I first met Funaki. He was a young guy there, cleaned up the gym for him. Young guys breaking into the business. So when I signed with Tenru, I went, and that's the first thing I did. I went down to the Ueno Station and bought this sword. And brought it back just because I saw it every single day, and I looked at it and I couldn't afford it. So that's why I went down and bought it.
Scott Gata wants to know, what are your thoughts on the short-lived talent Palmer Cannon?
He was there for a while, and I got blamed for running him off, and I might be responsible. We were talking to him. I was.
I love you. Just go, sure enough, I might be.
A lot of things people say, "Oh, did you do this?" And they go, "No, I didn't. I didn't." But for Palmer Cannon, yeah, I'm probably guilty. We were talking to him in a bar one night in Italy, and I think he took it all wrong. And I could be a dick when I drink, admittedly, and maybe it's too strong. I'm not used to guys that, get. I don't want to say feelings hurt or whatever it is, whatever happened. And he quit the next day. Several of us were in the bar, and we're, trying to, I don't know, we thought we were trying to explain the business, but, people can say we were being mean or whatever it was. Maybe we were. And if we were, I apologize. But he quit the next morning, went home from Italy. So I didn't really know him that well. But I'm probably the one that ran him off.
Listen, I know that these days that stuff is not received well, but I'm just saying, in the last 13 years, 12 years, I have heard people in the wrestling business, in a wrestling building, say to one another, "I wish you would just go unalive yourself." Yeah. And it was said in a joking manner. But they also used to refer to matches that just went really awry really quickly, and it was just a train wreck. The technical term, the industry jargon for that in the wrestling confines was abortion. Now, none of those words exist anymore, and people don't talk like that anymore. But once upon a time, that was just commonplace. And I do think that some of that has changed, John, because the travel schedule is not as crazy, and you're not spending as much time in the cars. So that level of camaraderie doesn't really grow. And I know some people would say, well, it's not camaraderie, it's hazing and all that sort of thing. But ball busting, like you go to any car dealership and you talk to the sales guys who've been there 5 years plus, they are fucking brutal to each other.
Right.
I mean, like our group chat, if you could see our group chat with me and my friends, there's nothing. If they call me right now and I wasn't on air, I would answer very horribly, but that's just the way we speak to each other. We wouldn't dare speak to anybody that way if they weren't on our inner circle, if that makes sense. Am I making that up, or is that about
no,
right?
you're 100% true. And people are going to think I'm trying to, rewrite history or whatever, try to make amends for what I look. If I'm a dick, I'm a dick. But we ball busted all the time, all the freaking time. We did that to everybody, and then all of a sudden the world changed, and all of a sudden now people didn't take it the same way, and that was part of it. We were just ball busting, and it got taken. I don't know about wrong or right or whatever else, and he got up the next morning and flew back from Italy and quit.
And that was that, man.
Yep.
What a great moment on the show where you go, I might have done that one.
I'm definitely to blame for that.
Kyle Peterson says, what are JBL's thoughts on his action figures over the years? Are there any standouts or any stories around them? I mean, listen, I know at this point in your career, it's old hat, but your first action figure, that had to be like a cool deal for you and your family, didn't it?
Yeah, because I didn't know it was coming out, and I'm walking by Walmart, and I see the action figures in the wrestling, and I wanted to see whose figures they were, and all of a sudden my figure's there, and it's the first time I knew that I had an action figure. They didn't tell me I had one coming out. They didn't take scans of you back then. They just kind of put your head on different bodies. In fact, one of the first tag team action figures I had, this may have been it. They had my name under Barry Windham's picture, and Barry Windham's name under my picture. They didn't give a care at all. But I remember I saw that action figure, and I put all of them in the buggy, and I went to go buy them, and I thought, oh shit, I can't buy my own action figure in my hometown. And so I went and hid them all, and went and got my mom, who lived in the same town. I said, go buy all my action figures. I hid them behind. I told them where I hid them. So mom went and bought all my action figures.
How cool is that, man? To see your mom go to Walmart and buy your action figure. Like, as a little kid, that's got to be like the coolest thing ever. Brian Wiseman has a great idea. I know you're going to love this. Have you ever thought about starting a bar fight wrestling company that would tour local bars and put on shows? That would be something I would watch, especially if you and Ron were commentating. What do you think about that? Like, you're famous for these barroom fights. We know there was a whole pay-per-view, APA Barroom Invitational. You guys destroyed the Friendly Tap, or renovated the Friendly Tap many times. You were just the demolition phase of that. But anyway, I could totally see that becoming a thing. Like, think about all these favorite dive bars that we've seen. I don't know that you even necessarily have to have a ring. I think you could sell tickets to that. He may be on to something. What do you think of this idea?
Yeah, that's what Herb Welch and a bunch of the old Dirty Dutch Mantel, the original Dutch Mantel, used to do, back in the 20s and 30s. That's how they made a name for themselves. Then they'd set somebody up and end up, shooting on them and taking all their money. So it's certainly been done before in a different way. I think it'd be awesome. It sounds like kind of like a tough man contest where you show up and, guys could have, ability to fight each other or something. That people love that stuff. People love the tough man contest. Guys love being part of it. That stuff to me is fun. It's just guys being guys, having fun, and going out there and putting some gloves on where you're not going to get hurt and hit each other a bunch.
Not James SF says, why didn't JBL and Corbin work, and why didn't Corbin work out in WWE? I mean, he was there for a long time. I think he's one of the more beloved guys behind the scenes, an outstanding guy, a watch collector like me. We hit it off, and he's always so generous and gracious, and I've never seen anyone even have a bad interaction with him. He's my buddy Cassio Kidd's one of his favorite wrestlers he ever met. Maybe it's the Colts background. I don't know, but everybody loves the guy, and it just felt like it was a shoe-in. I mean, he's trying to be a heel. Here you are, one of the most hated heels in WWE history. That felt like it should have worked. Why didn't it work, John?
I don't know. And you're right about Baron. Everybody likes Baron. Baron, he's a tough guy. Baron won some jiu-jitsu contests recently. He was a Golden Gloves champion. He's an NFL football player. He's a big, tall guy. He's a very smart guy, and he's a good guy. I like Baron a lot. Bishop, or whatever his Bishop, I don't whatever the name is now, but Baron is what he's known by. And I don't know what happened. I know it never really got a chance. I know that. We talked about some different ideas, and nothing ever happened. I just they just kept, when I was there, they just kept beating him. and cut a promo, and he come out, and he, nothing he can do about that. And then all of a sudden they just decided to quit it. There was never really a long-term plan that was told to us, at least to me. I mean, I don't think it was told to Baron. I think he would have told me. I would assume. I don't think he would assume that I would know. Certainly wasn't keeping it from me, but there was never anything told to us that, hey, here's what we want to do. It was just kind of ad hoc. Every week was, hey, let's do this, let's do this, let's just. There wasn't really a plan. Then all of a sudden they said, oh, we're going to kill it, and that was it. There was no plan to really start it. There was no plan to really end it. There was no plan in the middle, and there was no plan to extend it. And so I don't know why any of it was done. I like Baron. I thought the matchup worked. I can't be a manager for people that, unless it's somebody like Baron, because I'm too tall.
Right.
And I thought it could be really good, but it was never. I just thought it was never given a chance.
Keep up with Baron these days on Twitter at Tom Peacock. I'm screwing his name up, but it's Pestock. His wrestling name these days, though, is Bishop Dyer. So be sure to check out Bishop Dyer when he's in a town near you. He's one of those guys who has done really well with his money. He doesn't need the money. He loves professional wrestling. He loves combat sports. And what you saw in WWE programming is Vince's vision for him. But now you finally get to see his own vision for himself. I would encourage you to go check out Bishop Dyer. And maybe you weren't a fan of Baron Corbin. Hell, I don't even know if he was. But now you're going to see the real-life Tom, the Bishop Dyer, and what he's all about. And I think you might dig it. So check him out on Twitter at Tom Peacock.
I think you will too, because there's a lot of depth to I call him Baron Bishop. There's a lot of depth to him. He's a smart guy, and he's got so many skills as far as athletics. He's not a guy that that is hard when you did commentary for guys that didn't have history, because you had to make that history up. You had to figure out some way to talk about these guys. Baron's one of those guys you didn't have a problem, because he's got this wonderful history of combat sports, of the NFL football. There's a lot of depth to Baron. I think he's going to do incredibly well.
Deep Blue is with us here live, and he wants to know, why is Bruce being a guest on Sean Mooney's podcast, yet he can't come back to his own show with Conrad? He did not. That is an old replay of an old interview. Sean Mooney's not even doing a podcast anymore. He just reposted one of an interview where Bruce was a guest. So that's several years old. But if you're interested, we could post a best of next week, and you'll be happy because Bruce is back, because it's the same thing. It's just old content that's been reposted. We do have a few more questions we want to hit here, because we got a lot of great ones on Twitter. And everybody wants to know this one question. You've told me the answer off air as to why we haven't discussed it yet, but I do feel like we should address it so people will stop asking. JDB wants to know, I'm sure you've spoken about this before, but I'd like to hear his side of the Joey Styles story. As a reminder, Joey Styles is not active on any form of social media. He's pulled away from the wrestling business completely, and he's enjoying what we might call civilian life. But in real life, Joey and John are on great terms, and they get along great, and that's all water under the bridge, and who cares? But, John, you've told me before privately, hey, since Joey's not on social media and he's not talking about any of this, I think out of respect, I shouldn't talk about it either. And if and when he comes back, we can do it together, right?
Be happy to, yeah. Be happy to. I've never had a problem with Joey. Joey's, we're good friends before and after, and so yeah. I'm not going to, share my side of the story, but without him, front running him. And
yes. But let me say this: I am in regular communication with Joey, somewhat regular communication, and if and when
Joey's a good guy. I've always liked Joey. I like Joey before and after. I like I say, when I get drunk, I can be an asshole, and so whatever happened, I'm sure I deserved it. So I have no problem with that.
I get a Christmas card from Joey and his family. Joey's a friend, and if and when Joey comes back to the wrestling space, we may or may not be doing some stuff together. And I'm sure in that vein, we'll get you two together. And boy, you want to talk about having the internet talking, we'll get to the bottom of it together. But that's the reason, if Joey is pulling back and he wants to be a private citizen, we don't need his name plastered everywhere and stirring up everything.
Yeah, and I hate that. I hate when people bring something up about me, and all of a sudden I say all this stuff, and so I try to never do that about anybody else.
Yeah,
never bring up anything controversial about anything else.
Sure. Because, here's the reality. When guys are working outside of the confines of wrestling and they're doing, real jobs, and somebody in a vetting process goes and Googles your name, and there's anything controversial that might affect your future employment opportunities, and we're just not in the business of doing that here. So
yeah, I don't need to apply. I don't need to apply to anywhere because there's so much shit on me out there. And I don't know the percentage, but I'm going to say 70-80% is not. Well, I don't know about that. Maybe 50% is not true. Some of it can be very true. I've admitted that I can be very difficult in my younger years.
You did earlier in this very same episode. We're getting other questions about, like Joey wants to know, what the heck happened with the announcer Morrow? All I've ever heard was that JBL hazed him so badly he didn't want to be an announcer anymore, and that's why he left the broadcast. If JBL has a side of the story, I'd love to hear it. It's in the archives. We already did that at somethingtowrestle.com. We told it in great detail. It is hilarious, though, because every fifth question is, why did he beat up Meanie? What happened to Paul Burkett? It starts to become like, man, JBL is the original guy with a shit list, just warming up that shoulder, getting ready to go.
That's right. Absolutely.
Kesperado wants to know, what do you think of Real Killer Cross? We're seeing him these days on WWE as Carrying Cross. Is he worth pushing now or next year? And if so, how would you like to see him be booked? What's interesting about this is he's really gotten himself over organically. Like, they weren't even necessarily using him a lot on TV, but he started posting some stuff on social media. He had that clip right after WrestleMania. All of his merch is selling out now. He got a huge pop on Main Event last week. I mean, this is an organic growth, and I've seen the Killer Cross haters and naysayers out there. I would challenge you and say those people never met the real life Kevin. He is a delightful guy, and to know him is to like him. But I've seen the people who were critical of his presentation or whatever, and even they're coming around now saying, damn, he's really got it. People are into it. I think Triple H deserves some credit for this one. He clearly saw something in Kevin and has kept him going, and now it feels like fans are getting with him. It's really cool to see that momentum growing organically, isn't it, John?
Yeah, it is, and I echo that. I didn't know his real name. I've only known him as Karrion, I guess. I've met him a few times, and he has been unbelievably respectful and nice.
Yes,
as I have been to him as well, and to his I guess girlfriend or wife, is Scarlett, and incredibly nice guy. And I've watched a lot of stuff he's done. It's unique, and I say that in a positive way. You know, Jake Roberts was unique. You know, Jake Roberts did different promos, and he does I don't know if you call them promos. I think they are, but they're different. You know, they're softer spoken, a little more, like Arn Anderson type intelligent. It's really unique what he's doing. I admire what he's doing. It's you can take your lot in life and you can just swallow it, or you can say, that's my lot in life, but I'm going to change that. And he's changing it. And that's what I would recommend. Right now you can do so much with social media. I think you can hurt yourself, and I think a lot of guys do, or you can help yourself. And I think guys like Karrion are doing a wonderful job with that. He's obviously a very smart guy. And I think he's doing it. I love what he's doing. I think it's fun. I don't know where he's going with it. I don't know if he has a plan. I feel like he probably does, but it'd be interesting to see what happens.
I've got two of the greatest questions in the history of Ask JBL Anything coming up here. Kingsman J almost threw down the gauntlet on me, and he says, I bet you won't do the how big's Batista's dick spot with JBL. So let me just go ahead and ask you in a loud and clear voice. John, how big's Batista's dick?
It must be huge, because everybody's asking that question. You don't ask that question unless there's something to it. I have no idea. I've never seen I don't think I've ever seen Dave in the shower, so I don't know. I don't know the answer, truthfully.
Just guess. Show us with your hands. Just guess.
I have no way of knowing.
Is it bigger than the Tenru?
How would I know? I just told you I don't know.
Tenru sword.
His wallet's pretty big. That impresses me more.
Well, I want to give you something that I think will impress you right now. Before we get to what might actually be the greatest question in the history of Ask JBL Anything. You've heard me talking about credit card debt and how it's risen to a record $1.21 trillion. Well, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, 60% of credit card holders are carrying a credit card balance each month, with the average credit card interest rate being 23%. But right now, we're all still living with a lot of economic uncertainty. But one thing I'm certain of is your home is still worth more than what you paid for it. And instead of carrying that debt month to month and taking on new debt, why not just use the equity in your home instead? Someone who did exactly that is a listener to this show, Bo, a machine operator from Pinson, Alabama. His family had 4 different vehicles break down around the same time. And as you can imagine, there's a whole lot of unplanned expenses there. So when life throws you a curveball and you need to phone a friend, let us hook you up like we did Bo at savewithconrad.com. At the time, we were not able to help him out, but we did give him a plan and a timeline. You see, at savewithconrad.com, we don't say no, we say not yet, but here's how. And once we hit that timeline, we were able to help him use the equity in his house to not only pay off all the debt, but also situate the vehicles. He got one fixed. He got some new vehicles. Hell, we even helped him find a more affordable homeowner's insurance plan. That alone saved him over $200 a month. Go right now to savewithconrad.com and let my team run the numbers for you. It's totally free. There's no cost. There's no obligation. And if we can't help you save some cash, we won't waste your time. It costs nothing to look. But I want to let you know right now with our team at savewithconrad.com, we also give you the year 3 guarantee. Experts agree that interest rates are expected to fall in the next couple of years. And what this guarantee allows you to do is refinance in the next 3 years without any new lender fees. So you lock in a better rate and reduce your monthly payments right now. And when interest rates fall in the next couple of years, you refinance again without a whole nother set of closing costs. All that newfound equity in your home is the answer to what you've been looking for if you're feeling stressed out and making minimum payments on your credit cards, or maybe you just need some cash to help with your cars, or maybe you've got a honey-do project. Maybe when you bought your house, you thought one day we'll upgrade the bathrooms, one day we'll upgrade the kitchen. You can do that right now and never have to move. Get the cash you need to turn your house into your dream home with no money out of pocket at savewithconrad.com. Again, you don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket. Even if you were bankrupt a couple of years ago, we can still help you out. We're not going to say no. We're going to say not yet, but here's how. Find out how easy it is to let my family save money for your family at savewithconrad.com. NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender, savewithconrad.com. All right, John, here it is. Maybe the funniest question we've ever asked. The Sweaty Stallion over on Twitter, and what a great name that is, says it's 2005, John. You wander into the men's locker room, and there's the bathroom, and the toilet is clogged worse than you've ever seen. Besides Bruce, who's the most likely culprit?
Wow, that's interesting. So I've got to think about this because this is a very serious question. It could be, it could, it could be one of the Godwins.
Okay.
It could be one of the Godwins getting their slop bucket ready for Sonny.
Oh, God damn.
There were a lot
of Show. I mean, be honest, could have been Big Show.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah.
Tony Schiavone says that the Giant in WCW would just wreck the announcer's locker room. He'd go in their bathroom and it would be a pile, like a Jurassic Park level pile.
Yeah.
People would come in and take their glasses off and the music would start playing behind them.
Yeah.
And he would just belly laugh.
He's a real giant. He's an actual giant. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's Jurassic Park. I think it had to be Big Show. It'd have to be. Yeah.
Or Hornswoggle. I mean, if we're honest.
Yes.
Because he's full of it.
Yeah. And guys back then, oh my God. The ribs back then were so freaking stiff. It was unbelievable what guys would do. And that was, you tell it now, be like, that's disgusting. It was disgusting then too. We just thought it was funny.
Black Hole Suns fan wants to know, how would you have handled the Daniel Puder problem had it been you and not Kurt Angle in that situation?
You mean me being hooked?
Yes.
I don't know what I could have done. I have no idea. I would hope that Corderas would count him out like he did with Kurt.
Yes.
Kurt's a gold medalist. He's not going to lose a wrestling match to Daniel Puder. And no offense to Daniel, but a guy gets you hooked, you're hooked. And Kurt wasn't expecting it, and all of a sudden it happens. You're hooked. You're hooked. There's really nothing you can do about it. Corderas was freaking smart to count him out right quick.
Justin Carpenter wants to know, what is your opinion of Ahmed Johnson?
I've said it before. Ahmed was very nice to me, and all you can do is treat guys and talk about guys the way they treated you. I know all the issues that are out there, and there's issues with that people either say about me that either are true or their opinion, whatever else. And I want people to judge me from my interaction with them, and I judge Ahmed the same way. He was very nice to me, and I considered him a friend, and certainly don't have anything bad to say about him. In fact, it's all good. He was really nice to me. We worked together in Dallas, and I've been to his place there in Houston. Ahmed was, like I say, I know all the issues. Shit happens in life. People have different experiences. My experience with Ahmed was very positive.
Really fun question here from Cam with a Plan. Was it more fun to play a beer drinking brawler character or a chicken shit millionaire character, and why? Both versions were entertaining and legendary. Did you have a preference? Which one is more fun?
It was more fun because Ron was there. With Ron there, I got to do so much more, and I always had somebody, bouncing ideas off, back and forth. So we always had a partnership there. It was a lot of fun. With the chicken shit stuff, sometimes I'm out there by myself. It depends on who you're wrestling. Most of the guys I got to wrestle were, terrific guys. Sometimes you get out there, you got to lead everything, and it's work sometimes. Not that often. I loved it. It was fun work, but being out there with Ron was probably the most fun I've ever had.
Really fun questions that are still hanging around here. We want to hit. Here's one from Alex who wants to know: do you guys save wrestler phone contacts as their real names or their ring names? For me, it's a bit of both. And sometimes I'll forget that I have their real name in there, and I'll type in my contacts their gimmick name. I don't see it, and then I have to think to myself, oh, yeah, QT's real name is Michael. So then I have to go find all right, there's 40 Michaels. Oh, yeah, that one. That's him. How do you do it? Same.
I got a mixture of everything. A lot of guys, I don't even know their real name, and I don't care to. I mean, it's not a big deal to me. We always ask why we call people by their stage names, and it was always back in the day so you wouldn't make a mistake on air or you wouldn't make a mistake around fans. So we always call people by their stage names. Just an old habit, and that's hard to break.
Well, what's interesting to me is with the new iPhone updates, you can now save like your information in your own phone, how you want to be programmed on other people's phones. So whenever I get it updated, like I had QT in there for years as QT Marshall. And if you would have put a gun to my head, I wouldn't have known his real name. But then when the iPhone update happened and I couldn't find him, I had to really think, hey, what is his real? Because you don't know. And it's like, oh yeah, that's it. This is him. Really weird, but that's the way it happens. Another question here from Sam, not wrestling related, but I'm from the UK and love rugby. John, how did you develop a passion for rugby?
I needed a program to work with gang kids in Bermuda, and rugby was the easiest because there was soccer, football, as they call it, over in Bermuda and overseas. It had legacy issues as far as gang issues and gang membership problems in the soccer clubs. I would have had to clean all that up. The local kids had never played rugby. It was pretty much a white expat sport. I was bringing it to the island kids that had some issues with gang problems and incarceration rates. And so I just needed a sport that was new, and I needed a sport you could play 5-on-5 or 15-on-15, and all you need was a ball. Football's too much. You need 22 players. You need all the equipment. Basketball, you need goals and all kinds of stuff. Rugby, you can play anywhere you have grass and a ball. And so it's just a very easy sport. Plus, it's a physical sport. For really tough kids like this, girls and boys, I've still got a lot of girls and boys in all the programs that I've worked with, and about 50-50, how it breaks down. They like to hit people. What kid doesn't? So I like the physicality of rugby.
Efren is with us here live, and he is echoing what everyone has been saying. The people want to know about Batista. So that's your homework this week, John. We need you to try to sneak a picture of Batista's hog, and we can reveal it next week here on the show. It should do big business. We're looking for clicks, and Batista's hog is best for business. Do you understand the assignment, John?
You think Bruce has one?
I don't even know if we can find Bruce. Finding Batista's hog may actually be easier than finding Bruce Pritchard. One last question, because I don't know why, but this popped off last week. It was all
Bruce told me last week. He goes, I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, just work. We're on damn time." I said, "Didn't you go to Aruba, like stay on
for
the
a
beach
fucking week?" Yes.
Yeah, a week. Yeah,
yes. But he's wore out, man. He's run ragged. Larry Morales says, "Did you really think messing with Steve Blackman was a good idea? He is unfuckwithable. I don't know why, but everybody seemed to regurgitate that story last week. I don't know if somebody told it on their podcast or what. I don't know that we've heard the story from you officially. We've heard it from Bruce, and it's hilarious when he does his JBL impression. What really happened with Bradshaw? What's real and what's just embellishment for the purpose of
okay? What happened is we had a early morning flight into Kansas City, and Steve had been sitting up front, I believe, and a couple of guys whose names I will not mention, I think had kind of messed with him, kind of poked with him some. He was having a hard time sleeping or something. And when I got there, I didn't know Steve was worked up. Okay. So that was a real issue. I wish I'd been told that, because they said, hey, go mess with Steve. I didn't realize he's having a bad day. So I go up mess with Steve. Steve and I are good friends. Go up mess with him. I pinched him on the butt and I said, you look good in them shorts there, boy. The old, stupid, corny deliverance, shit we used to do, and next thing I know, he has hit me 7 or 8 times. It's like, holy shit, I just pinched an Avenger on the ass, because that's what the fuck just happened. And so I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, it was so freaking fast and hard. And then he went to step back into a kick me. I don't know where he would have kicked me, but it was going to hurt me, whatever it was. And he stepped into a bag where a baggage claim. And then we go rolling over the baggage claim and roll over like this old guy who was just the innocent bystander. And Shamrock was on the phone. Shamrock's the one that broke it up. And so I'm like, you got to be kidding me. What the fuck just happened? It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. And so anyway, we break it up. And we rolled on the rental car together. I said, what the fuck's wrong with you? I'm having a bad day. I said, well, shit, sorry. Shit happens. So anyway, then we go to the building, and now Bruce remembers it a little bit wrong. Okay. Not the story that I told him. Bruce didn't find us. JR did. So Bruce did pull me aside and said, what happened? That's when I said, Mr. Pritchard, he hit me 8 times before I knew I was in a fight, which is true. It was, we were all of a sudden, he's good. He's really good. And then JR fined us. That was the day that Owen Hart died. It was that night that Owen Hart died.
My God. Well, listen, it's going to be a big weekend. We hope everybody's wrestling for a lot of wrestling. There's a wrestling pay-per-view on Sunday, but Saturday night's main event is on Saturday. And, man, they've got a lot planned for this episode. We're going to see Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre in a steel cage. Do you want to make a call on that one, John? Who do you see getting the dub here?
Interesting. I give me Drew McIntyre. Yeah. Now, who went? Is this the match? This the return match from Mania?
Yes. Yeah. This is the rematch on Saturday night's main event this Saturday night on NBC and Peacock. And
Drew went over in Mania, right?
Yes.
All right. Give me Damian Priest. I think they'll balance it out.
You changed your okay. All right. I'm still going.
Well, I think they balance it out. I know, the old booking is, you kind of figure out a way to keep both guys, because they love both guys. So I know they're trying to keep both guys strong. Or I don't know that because I don't have any inside knowledge on this, but I've been in the business for a long time, and you got 2 guys you want to keep even. It just seems like they're going to do something to keep it even.
They went 13:55 in a Sin City street fight. Drew got his hand raised, and you're going Damian Priest this time. The other matches this weekend include CM Punk teaming with Sami Zayn, unlikely tag team partners, taking on Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker, who I guess are a little bit of a faction now. A lot of intrigue on this one. Who do you see walking out with the victory here on Saturday night, John?
Nobody. I see no finish. Okay. I think they're going to do some type of schmoz and get out of it. I think they got 4 great guys that they don't want anybody to do a job. And, but to me, Seth and Braun are the guys that they've really put in the fire under right now. And if somebody goes over, it'd probably be those 2. But I think no finish.
Hey, by the way, we got 2 more matches to pick, but MP is with us here live, and he says, give me all the heat for this, but Bruce can keep doing whatever the hell he needs to do. JBL is leaps and bounds more entertaining and gives better, more detailed answers. How about that?
Hey, thank you, MP. Can you tell them other son of bitches on there that ask me all these questions like, why are you such an asshole?
Hey, just leave that up there for the rest of the show. Let's try to leave John's pride intact as we close the show on a strong note here.
Actually, people at autograph session this weekend were saying the same thing. I actually recorded one of them just to show it to Briscoe.
Oh, well, we got to make sure that we post that to start the show next week. Let's start trolling Bruce on his own show. See how that works.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
I mean, listen, if he won't come to the table, we'll bring the table to him.
You damn right we will.
We got to talk about Jey Uso and Logan Paul. The WWE World Heavyweight title is on the line. I was just kidding, Sylvia. You can take down MP's comment. I do want to hear from you, though. Do you think the Yeet Man can retain, or is it Logan Paul's time? I mean, I do feel eventually Logan Paul's going to get that big gold belt, but is it going to happen this Saturday, or is it too soon, John?
Hey, Logan Paul is going to be a world champion. I don't think. Yeah, I agree with you. There's no doubt about it. I don't think it's this weekend. I don't think there's any way. You got this, Jey Uso. You got to give him time, and he is over like crazy right now, and he's done too much. You can't. My opinion, you leave it on him, but eventually Logan Paul. That's a heat-seeking missile, man. He is so. I am such a fan of Logan Paul. He's going to be a great. He's going to be a great world champion. I mean that. Not only a world champion, he's going to be a great world champion. That's going to make some people mad.
No, I don't think so. Last but certainly not least, John Cena and R-Truth. The world title is on the line. I don't think anybody would have predicted that this is what we would see in a Saturday night's main event. But as a big fan of Ron Killings, I am delighted to see him in this spot. What do you think happens here? Is Ron Killings going to pull the upset of a lifetime and leave the new WWE World Champion?
No. I wish he was. I love Ron. Man, I'm the biggest R-Truth fan in the world. Me and Ron had to pull him aside one time and said, "Hey, I think I said this to you. You know that song you have where you talk about you're the best young brother or something. You're a brother, but you ain't young no more." So I said, so he changed the lyric. He literally did. I love Truth. This is going to be a lot of fun. I have a feeling this is going to be a great match. Cena likes Truth, as everybody does. I think this is going to be this may steal the show. It may be so entertaining.
Check it out. It's Saturday night's main event. It's this Saturday, anywhere you enjoy Peacock or NBC. It's going to be live. I can't wait for it. But we do want to touch on some sad news. I guess we should start by saying that we have recorded, since you and I got together, a tribute to Sabu. We revisited and had a chance to catch up with a lot of his friends. Rhino, Jerry Lynn, Al Snow, and the Blue Meanie were all there to sort of pay tribute to Sabu. And we've posted it over at podcastheatwrestling.com. It's totally free. It's our YouTube channel. But we have a lot of stories in there about the real life Terry Brunk and his generosity and the way he cared for his peers. I don't think that we fans know that. We know the death-defying, suicidal, homicidal, all the crazy stuff he did inside the ring. But his passion for the business and the guys in the business really came through in that. I would encourage you to check that out. I also want to remind you that a couple of years ago, we got Sabu and Taz together to relive the build for the first ever ECW pay-per-view, Barely Legal 1997. And I think we actually have a clip of our get-together, which is available now at podcastheatwrestling.com. Let's take a listen.
We just had a natural chemistry. I'm not bragging about both of us, but we did.
Yeah, I agree. Like I told you, like I said, I'll say it a million times. My favorite match is the very first match I had in ECW with you.
Yeah, and Sammy, I love that match too. And anybody who wants to go back and watch that shit, go watch it. This was not a good beginning of this match. Sabu, take it away.
Remember you slapped me in the mouth?
Sorry. Yeah.
About knocked me out. I was out on my feet. It doesn't even look like it.
Yeah, people know that's not that. Yeah, I caught him on the button. He gave me his jaw, and I went a little too hard.
Like that there, I was out on my feet. That not that.
Oh, wow.
I came back and worked it. I was out on my feet.
Yeah, and I think you leave the ring at some point. Yeah, you will. And I knew it because we had some stuff worked out, and it all had to change.
So there you go. The very first ECW pay-per-view. This was the cover. This was the program. This was the poster. And almost immediately, Taz knocked him out. We rewatched that entire match, and you can relive those memories of Taz and Sabu catching up like you've never seen them before. It used to live behind the paywall at adfreeshows.com, but we thought we should make it available for everyone to sort of celebrate some real-life Sabu. That's available for you now at podcastheatwrestling.com. Check it out. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. Turn on the notifications bell. So the next time we're live, you won't miss it. but it's totally free at podcastheatwrestling.com. But the big news, John, you and I knew this was going on behind the scenes, that JR was having some troubles and some difficulties. We didn't think it was our place to share it. He revealed to the world last week on social media that Mr. Ross has been diagnosed with colon cancer. And obviously, that is no laughing matter. That is a very serious note. And we usually like to have a good time here on the program. So I wanted to save it for last and try to treat this with as much respect as we possibly can. Jim Ross truly is the voice of wrestling.
Mhm.
I mean, think about all the iconic calls that we saw for him in Watts and then in WCW and certainly in the WWE. I mean, even now when a crazy, tackle happens in wrestling or in football rather, there's a big collision in a basketball game or someone gets knocked out in MMA or boxing, they usually try to recreate it with a JR call. It transcends just WWE and professional wrestling. And when New Japan was looking to make a big splash in America and they wanted an English commentary, they knew who to call. They called one guy. They called Jim Ross. And when World of Sport was trying to make a comeback in the UK and they wanted to get a television deal, they knew who to call. They called one guy, and that was Jim Ross. Even when Tony Khan was looking to launch a challenger brand for WWE, he knew that one of the things that television networks are going to care about and be concerned about is, hey, what's the show going to sound like? He called the WWE Hall of Famer Jim Ross. And Jim's down in Jacksonville. I know for sure he's going to get the best medical care that you can possibly get, thanks to the Mayo Clinic. But as he's getting ready for surgery, pretty major surgery here in the next couple of weeks, I ask that all wrestling fans keep him in your thoughts and prayers. Jim Ross truly is the voice of wrestling, isn't he, John?
Oh, 100%. When Vince was doing the XFL, he had a bunch of announcers. He called them all together and he goes, I want you to listen to some real announcers. And he had them listen to Jim Ross. That's how much he thought of JR. Man, he was an unbelievable announcer. Still is. But man, talk about a library of 30 to 40 years of just incredible calls, one after another. He made things interesting. He made you care about what you were watching. It's something that was just, some people have it, some people don't. JR's just had a gift from God to be able to call things and make them interesting and be able to tell stories. And, he certainly did so much for me in my career, and he's still a good friend, and I look forward to hopefully years and years of friendship going ahead.
James Redding is here with us, and he says, my brother-in-law's had colon cancer 4 times and he's still living. Man, we need that positive news. If you believe in that sort of thing, let's throw one up for good old JR tonight and keep him added to your prayers list. This is going to be a pretty big deal at any age, but certainly given all the challenges that life has thrown JR in recent years with, his different diagnoses that he's had. We know he's had that bad spot on his leg, and before that, losing Jan. I mean, I just can't imagine. My man needs a break, and we're hoping for some good news. So keep Jim Ross in your thoughts and prayers, and we'll be back next week and having a little fun right here on Something to Wrestle with John Layfield.